And the first item on the agenda is to elect a chair and vice chair. We'll take them individually. And let me just talk a little bit about governance or the philosophy about when you chair a commission, what is expected. And because the Historic Commission is a critical position as a chair and as a board. Your decisions impact an individual property owner when they apply for a certificate of appropriateness. It also impacts the other property owners within the district as well. And so that's really important in terms of that this commission needs to listen to all opinions. You need to have an open mind and listen and provide direction, but you may not agree with someone's position, and at that point as a commission, it is important that you treat everyone with dignity and respect, even if you differ with their opinion. And so it's important that the chair be able to set that tone for the commission. And so you need to think about that when you nominate your chair and your vice chair. So with that, I am ready to take a motion for election of the chair. Oh, yes.
Excuse me. I nominate Maverick Welch.
Rick Welch, okay. Second, Anna, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? None? Okay. So we have a chair. May we have, next I will open, and congratulations.
Thank you.
We will open for a vice chair.
Okay. I'd like to nominate Rob Hellier as vice chair.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, Anna? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay.
There's no escape.
All right. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Chair. Congratulations for a chair and vice chair.
Thank you. Well, as an old history teacher, that's pretty cool. Thank you. I guess we'll move on to a report from the chair. I don't really have much of a report other than to say thank you to the other commissioners. Thank you very much. I appreciate your confidence, and also thank you, Commissioner Hellier, for agreeing to serve as vice chair. Thank you. All right. Do we have a report from the director?
Nope.
Report?
You're going to have a long meeting.
I know. My God. Here we go. Okay. Do we have a report from the Mayor's Assistant for Cultural Affairs?
Mr. Chairman, congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, congratulations. I just want to remind everyone that next Tuesday at the afternoon portion of City Council meeting at 1:30, Phoebe Tudor will be receiving the award from the Mayor for the Preservationist of the Year. And I hope that some of you could be present for that presentation at 1:30 in Council Chambers on Tuesday. So very well deserved, and we're very proud of her. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is approval of the May 16th, 2013 HAHC minutes. Has everybody had some time to review those minutes? Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes? Okay. Commissioner Homeyer has made a motion to adopt the minutes from the May 16th, 2013 meeting. Do we have a second? Okay. Commissioner Cisneros has seconded. All those in favor? Okay. It's unanimous. The meeting minutes from May 16th meeting are hereby adopted. All right, moving on to agenda item 1, public hearing and consideration of Germantown Historic District Design Guidelines. And just from a personal perspective, I can't wait to see the mod ones for Glenbrook Valley at some point in the distant future, maybe.
In the very near future, maybe.
Oh, in the near future, great.
The first, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Madam members of the Commission. My name is Diana Ducrow, and the first item for consideration today are the Germantown Historic District Design Guidelines. Germantown was designated as a historic district in December of last year, and the final step in the designation process is to create design guidelines for the district. To do this, the Planning Department hired a preservation consultant, Steph McDougall of McDougall Preservation, and she's here with me today. She's going to do the presentation on the guidelines, but before I turn it over to her, I want to talk real briefly about the ordinance requirements for guidelines. First of all, design guidelines for new historic districts became mandatory when the ordinance was amended in October 2010. Any historic district created under these new rules will have design guidelines that are approved by council. And Germantown is the first and so far only district that has been created under the new ordinance. The applicants for a new historic district may draw up their own design guidelines and submit that as part of their historic district application, but if they don't, then the planning department is responsible for creating them, which is the case for Germantown. If there's no clear process in the ordinance for review of the design guidelines, so what the planning department did once the draft was ready was to hold 2 community meetings in Germantown on May 30th and June 5th, and today holding the public hearing. No notice letters were sent to all property owners in advance of each of the meetings as well as today's hearing. At the close of the hearing today, the HAHC may make a recommendation to City Council about the design guidelines, and then the next step will be to go to City Council for approval, stopping along the way at the appropriate council committee for review. And only new historic districts are required to have the design guidelines approved by council. So we will not be going through the same process with the other existing historic districts. Old Sixth Ward is in a category of its own. It already has adopted design guidelines since it was established in a different process. However, guidelines are very helpful to property owners, to architects, as well as to staff in reviewing projects and in helping people understand what is appropriate and what is compatible in our historic districts. So what the planning department has done is created the historic district web manual with district profiles for each individual district. Delaney gave a short presentation on that to you at your meeting last month, and since then it has gone live on our website. And Maverick, that includes Glenbrook Valley.
Yay!
So if you go to houstonplanning.com and then click through to historic preservation, you'll have access to that web manual as well as the district profiles. There are a few pieces that are still being edited and will be up very, very soon, so it should be complete. There'll probably be some tweaking going, soon. I mean, as we kind of straighten a few things out. But we're really excited about them, and we really hope that they're helpful to our property owners, builders, to staff, and also to you in making your decisions. These profiles contain much of the same content as the official design guidelines that Germantown will have, such as what is a typical setback in the district, what is the typical height, what are typical architectural features in a particular district, what is appropriate new construction in a district. Steph McDougall, who wrote Germantown's design guidelines, also developed the district profiles for all of the districts. So the main difference between the web manual profiles and the design guidelines is that the design guidelines are the only ones that are actually adopted by council. However, they're comparable in terms of their content as well as how they're intended to be used. So, also both the design guidelines and the district profiles are meant to illustrate the ordinance. They're not creating new standards that are either more stringent or more lenient than what the ordinance criteria already require. So with that, I will turn it over to Steph to present the guidelines.
Thanks, Diana.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. A little shorter. Okay. Well, when we first started this project, not only the design guidelines, but also the development of the district profiles, since it's been a while since the city of Houston put design guidelines together for Old Sixth Ward, we went back and looked at what are standard practices for design guidelines throughout the country. Luckily, the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions maintains a library of these resources online, so it's really easy to find what other people have done and look for really good examples of things that are clearly illustrated and that sort of thing. And we mentioned that the guidelines are based on just illustrating the requirements and not creating anything new. And to, if you want to go ahead. What we've done is to create both text, of course, and both photographic illustrations and line art to illustrate some of the concepts that are in the guidelines. So we began with the draft outline and some text. That went through a number of iterations with staff and myself to figure out how to best organize this information. And then my staff, including Ann Shelton, who's here with me, captured photos from the district as well as other places around Houston to illustrate both the compatible changes that one could make, as well as things that are incompatible or not recommended. But we made a point of not using things from within this district to illustrate incompatible or not recommended concepts. Diana mentioned that we had 2 community meetings. Attendance was light, as it often is for these meetings, but we got some really good feedback, and we were able to incorporate the public's comments into those drafts. You can go ahead. So let's take a look at what's in the design guidelines. You have these on your iPads. The document is broken up into 4 sections. It begins with an introduction. You can go ahead. Which includes a map of the district, a short history of the district, and this is based on what we developed for the district profiles, and descriptions and photographs of architectural styles that are found in the district with a little history about when that style was popular and what are its character-defining features. We go on then to the guidelines, and these are the requirements. We do have a good practices section that comes later, but the guideline requirements list the things that people have to do. So if you're going to make an exterior alteration that's visible from the public right-of-way and it involves your windows, for example, that's in here. So we've got streetscapes, exterior changes, new construction, relocation, and demolition, which we hope we never ever have to use. The streetscape section includes size, massing, height, orientation, and setback. Staff is in the process of determining typical ranges for some of these measurements that you see illustrated here, so that we can provide the public with very specific data, nominal data about what's out there right now and how to fit within comparable ranges for things like eave height and peak height. In the guidelines, the changes include porches, wall cladding. Most of the district is wood siding with some brick, windows, doors, many of which have this craftsman styling that you see here, roofs, foundations, and then in this, what we called here on this slide, a miscellaneous category, you can see awnings and canopies, garages and accessory buildings and things like that. Remember, those are all of the requirements. Now, the good practices section includes all of those recommendations that we have for folks who may not be required to follow these specific suggestions, but want some guidance when they want to make a change that affects their fence, or sidewalks, or driveways and parking areas, exterior lighting, etc. So we recognize that people need some guidance when they want to be compatible and harmonious with the neighborhood, even though these things aren't going to be certificate of appropriateness types of stuff. And then finally, in the resources section, we've got web links for the Secretary of the Interior Standards, links to the Texas Historical Commission website, and also here for everybody's reference, a glossary of terms, primarily for architectural elements, so you know what we're talking about in the guidelines, and then the district inventory. So that's what's in it. Like I said, we got not a lot of feedback from the community, but we have incorporated their changes. And I think at this point, we've got a really solid document that reflects best practices nationwide and will be very useful to the folks in the district when they want to make changes or do projects involving their property. And we'd be happy to take any of your questions.
Well, I'd just like to commend the city for taking the time and effort to put this together. I think it'll be really useful, having lived in historic districts for a long time and had to guide many people through the process. It, I think, will clarify many things and make it a lot easier and more predictable for people wanting to improve their homes.
Mr. Chair, if it pleases the commission, you may open the public hearing.
Absolutely. I'd like to go ahead and open the public hearing on, for consideration of the Germantown Historic District Design Guidelines. Would any members of the public like to speak? Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on consideration of the design guidelines for the Germantown Historic District. Okay, public hearing is closed. Okay, do we have any discussion among the commission? Okay.
I know I don't have a vote, but I feel like this is really groundbreaking
Yeah.
for the commission and for preservation in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally haven't had a chance to read through it. It looks superb, but it would be really worthwhile to have that opportunity for everyone here.
Mm-hmm.
Not to hold up the wheels of progress, but maybe
Give some time.
have
to
an
review.
opportunity to have some time to
Mhm.
to review it and make some comments internally here. That's just a suggestion.
Okay. Director Gafford, do you have anything on that?
When's the next Historic Commission meeting?
July 17th.
July 17th, okay. And we're set to go to City Council Committee July 16th. Was this distributed to the commission in advance of the meeting, the guidelines?
There was a draft that was distributed last Friday. The draft
Okay.
today is, has been updated a little bit. There have been some corrections, but it's substantially the same document.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So-
think most of us have reviewed the draft. Would anybody need any more time to review the document? Okay. All right. I guess we need to make a motion on whether to send it off to City Council. Okay. Commissioner
I had
Cisneros?
one question.
Okay.
And is it just because of the time of the previous districts being designated that there would not be guidelines? It seems like we're having ongoing issues at every meeting with the previous districts. Is there any reason why not to retroactively put together some guidelines?
That's what Diana was talking about, as we put together the district profiles. And they're very similar, they're just not required by ordinance to have design guidelines. The ordinance, when it was amended, said every new district that was created under the new rules will have design guidelines. And so we're following what the ordinance says. But the profiles that Diana talked about is really that intent in terms of an educational tool, in terms of, what are appropriate ways to alter your buildings, or, how you should handle new construction. So they will be similar in content, is what Diana said.
Okay. All right. Do we have any motions? Do we need motions?
Yes.
Yes, so anybody like to make a motion about this item? Okay,
I'll
Commissioner
make a
Vaughn?
motion that are we accepting staff's recommendation to approve these or forward them on to council?
You recommend to approve them and forward them to City Council?
Yes.
Okay, so Commissioner Mott has recommended that we approve the proposed Germantown Historic District Guidelines. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Cisneros seconds. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. They are off to City Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work. All right, moving on to Agenda Item 2, consideration of certificates of appropriateness applications for the following properties. Do we?
I'd like to make a motion to consider the following items together.
Okay.
Item 2C, J, O. Do you want me to read the address?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah, the
sorry.
address
C,
too.
309 Avondale, J, 3320 White Oak, O, 1123 East 11th Street, P, 2003 Union, Q, 404 Sulross, S, 901 Taylor, U, 907 West Cottage, V, 921 Columbia, Y, 1134 Jerome, BB, 3903 Butte, DD, 1209 Cortland, EE, 1412 Arlington, FF, 2001 West Gray, GG, 2135 Luskin, II, 412 Main Street, JJ, 620 West Alabama Street, MM, 3516 Garrett Street.
All right, so we've got a motion on the floor to consider the following items together. Item 2C, 309 Avondale Street. Item 2J, 3320 White Oak Boulevard. Item 2O, 1123 East 11th. Item 2P, 2003 Union. Item 2Q, 404 Solaross Street. Item 2S, 901 Taylor Street. Item 2U, 907 West Cottage Street. Item 2V, 921 Columbia Street. Item 2Y, 1134 Jerome Street. Item 2BB, 3903 Butte Street. Item 2DD, 1209 Cortlandt Street. Item 2EE, 1412 Arlington Street. Item 2F, 2001 West Gray. Item 2GG, 2135 Luskin Lane. Item 2II, 412 Main Street. Item 2JJ, 620 West Alabama Street. And item 2MM, 3516 Garrett Street. Is that correct? Okay. Do we have a second? Oh, I believe Commissioner Cisneros needs to recuse himself from this vote. Okay, do we have a second on this motion to consider these items together? Okay, Commissioner Buchek seconds. All those in favor of considering them together? Okay, that's unanimous. All right, now we need a motion to grant a certificate of appropriateness. Do we have a motion to grant a certificate of appropriateness for those items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Maude has moved that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for all those items listed on the consent agenda. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Collins seconds. All those in favor? Okay. And all of those items have now been granted a certificate of appropriateness. Congratulations. So if you're down here to speak on any of those items, we've already granted you a certificate of appropriateness. So you don't have to stay for the entire meeting. We don't mind if you do, though. Yes, sir. All right, now we are moving on to item 2A, 6715 Conlin Street.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Jeff Butler, and I submit the following for your consideration. Item A, 6715 Conlin. The applicant proposes to replace board and batten siding on each side-facing gable, front dormers, and entryway with horizontal lap cementitious siding. The applicant also proposes to replace damaged wood fascia boards on the front gable with cementitious fascia boards. Staff feels the use of horizontal lap cementitious siding gives the property an appearance not consistent with the period of significance with the district. Therefore, staff feels that the application is not compliant with criterion 1 for alterations to non-contributing buildings within a historic district, therefore is recommending denial.
All right. Do we have any questions from the Commission for staff about this item? Okay, is there any discussion among the commissioners? Okay, do I hear any motions?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept staff's recommendation for the denial of the C of A for item 2A, 6715 Conlin Street.
Okay, Commissioner Mon has moved that we accept staff recommendation for a denial of certificate of appropriateness. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Okay, Commissioner Garcia Herrera seconds that. All those in favor? Okay, and the certificate of appropriateness has been denied unanimously by the Commission. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 2B, 7514 Caton Street.
Item B, the applicant proposes to replace damaged board and batten siding on the side gables, front entry, and front dormers with cementitious board and batten siding. The applicant also proposes to replace damaged wood soffits with cementitious soffits. The city's senior inspector visited the site and has determined that the siding and soffit material are repairable and their condition does not warrant wholesale replacement. Staff feels the application is not in compliance with criterion 9 regarding alterations to contributing buildings within historic districts and is recommending denial.
All right. Do we have any questions for staff on this item? Item 2B from the Commission? Okay, do we hear any motions?
I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Sure.
Is the point then is this that the material being removed itself is significant architectural material?
Correct.
Okay. And that it should be repaired not by wholesale removal and replacement, but by individual kind of patching or replacing individual little pieces of wood or something, is that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your comment.
Well, I think the basis for recommending the denial is that the actual wood being taken off the building is in and of itself significant architectural historical material, which I've always found a little bit an issue about, actually how much stuff does it have to be for it's significant, or does it have to be, somehow unique? But it's very commonly the way staff interprets this ordinance, and the way the commission has voted before is that any kind of material you take off that's repairable and is in good shape is historical, cultural, architectural material that ought to be left intact and preserved if possible. But I mean, to me, I think there's a point where it gets de minimis, where you don't have to preserve everything on the building. But this one, obviously, staff has an opinion it's enough of the material, it should have been repaired instead of replaced.
Okay. I think that's a good point. Do we have any more questions for staff from the commissioners? Okay, do we have any motions on this item?
I make a motion we accept staff's recommendation for denial of C of A for item 2B, 7514 Caton.
Okay, Commissioner Mott has moved that we accept staff recommendation for a denial of a certificate of appropriateness for item 2B. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Stava seconds. All those in favor of denying a certificate of appropriateness, please raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Okay, did you abstain, yes. Commissioner? Okay, Commissioner Hillier abstained, but the rest voted in favor. Okay, so the certificate of appropriateness has been denied for item 2B. All right, moving on to item 2D, 419 Euclid Street.
419 Euclid. The applicant proposes to construct a 711 square foot second story addition on top of a one-story house. The addition consists of a side gabled second story over the rear 27 feet of the existing home and a front-facing gable extending 7 feet towards the street. The house's existing wood windows will remain intact with the exception of a bathroom window on the east elevation and a non-original bay window on the rear of the west elevation. These windows will be replaced by wood casement windows, which will also be featured throughout the addition. Staff feels the proposed addition is incompatible with the character of the existing home and the Woodland Heights Historic District and would require removal of significant amount of historic material. Therefore, staff is recommending denial. However, staff has taken into consideration the unique constraints of the property, which prevents the expanding house to the rear or on either side. Because the existing footprint of the house is not being expanded, staff supports the second story addition in the rear half of the house as long as it does not encroach into the front half of the house. Reducing the front gable portion of the second story addition by 5 feet would lessen the impact on the addition as seen from the street and would reduce the loss of historic material. We've also enclosed several, a little over a dozen, emails from the community who've all spoke up recently in support of the item as is.
Okay, we do have a speaker signed up for this item. Mr. Kyle Cuban. Okay, thank you for coming down.
Thanks to Jeff. I appreciate the time we've been given. My name's Kyle Cuban. I'm the owner. My wife couldn't be here today. We bought the home 10 years ago. And have supported historic preservation in an effort to modify our home for a family. We wanted to add 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, probably more detail than you need. We approached the project from how minimal of an impact we could have. That was important to us on both the lot and the existing home. We hired Bruce Roadcap based on seeing his work in the Heights home tours and being a resident of the Heights, and also, excuse me, a resident of the Historic District. Bruce has at least one other project working under a COA in the Woodland Heights. I believe he's going to speak next. We reached out to the committee early on We met with Jeff. We discussed the limitations of our lot. There's a pool in the back. We couldn't go any further back. We do have a two-story next door. I don't think any of these show the surrounding pictures that are submitted. The design is the smallest I noticed on the agenda today, and going back several months, I noticed that the total addition was the smallest that I could find, not counting a porch. Our plan was to preserve all of the historic siding and windows and walls. We thought that was important. A home in on our street that's working under a COA is at least half of it was demolished for whatever reason as part of the work, and is over 2,000 square foot addition. So we're trying to minimize where we go with these lots. We think it's just as important to preserve some of the yard and some of the green space. There's been plenty of reasons to see why that's important this week. We did go through several iterations with the staff through Jeff. We're assuming that's the group. And actually this week, I know that I believe he recommended moving back 5 feet, which actually makes the gable, I'd say, ornamental or insignificant. I don't think it adds any value. I'm not sure at that point. I brought some pictures I can pass around of some of those examples of where the gable is so small that I'm not sure it adds anything to the value of the neighborhood. We did have this iteration where and maybe it was a misunderstanding on or miscommunication, but we were told that if we were to move back a few feet, which we thought was a worthy compromise and still stayed within the guidelines, we realized that it seems like everyone's lined up on the 50% line regardless of the scope of project. Some quick numbers that I looked, I think somewhere along the way we heard the word incompatibility. Adjacent homes to us, one is a 2-story, one's a 1-story. The 2-story's 1,888 square feet, and the average square footage on the block of 400 Euclids, 1906. We would be at 1,881 with this addition. We've been surprised at how quickly people who have supported historic preservation have been willing to email and our support. We haven't solicited that other than from our neighbor because we thought that was important.
I'm the architect on the project, and I don't know how much to add except
sir, just please state your name.
I'm sorry, Bruce Roadcap. If you look at the elevation on your screen, it's worth noting, again, keep in mind, as they mentioned before, we couldn't go to the back at all because he has a nice pool in the backyard. These lots are small as it is, as you know, and we also didn't want to go to the side because of the drive, maintain that. What we did do with the portion that's in question, I think, which goes a little bit beyond the 50% line, only about 3 feet. If you look at the elevation carefully, you can see that small front second floor gable is stepped in on the sides a few feet on one side. I think there's another elevation, yeah, and then even farther on the other side, which helps reduce the scale of the front gable that's in question. And it also helps, if you notice, lower that gable, which is closest to the street, the front portion, which, again, I think is a nice technique to reduce the scale and the mass from the street, which seems to be a big consideration to the staff. So even though we're coming beyond that 50%, in my mind, it's a legitimate reason to come just 3 feet beyond that. It is a 711 square feet total, I think, which is a pretty modest addition. And they're hoping to raise a family, have children, so they need the space. And I would just strongly recommend support for the project. Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robcap.
Thank you.
Do any members of the commission have any questions for the applicant?
I do. What is the difference between this proposed and the accepted shall approve guidelines?
The 3 feet that I think Bruce referred to, I know I believe the staff mentioned something about a 5 feet, which I'm not sure where that number comes from, but the 3 feet.
I think Diana could probably speak to this as well.
Okay, yeah, sorry, go
I
ahead.
don't want to interrupt you, I'm sorry. The shall approve is limited to, the addition must be behind the 50% in the rear half of the existing structure. So we would start measuring at the rear wall, from the rear wall to the front facade, and the heavy red line that you see there is where the 50% mark falls. So the projecting part of it comes out about 7 feet more than where the 50% would be. There's other constraints on a shall approve. They can't be altering original features like the windows, for example. So it's just not quite a shall approve. Does that answer the question?
Yes. However, if that front-facing gable were pushed back the 7 feet, you would be in the shall approve.
I think because of the changes to some of the window placement, that it would not technically be a shall approve, but it would be very similar to what a shall approve project would be.
I'll just comment that the reason we, obviously, the feedback from the staff was that would seem, and I feel like we were kind of led here to make it look like we're not willing to move a few feet, when in reality that's a significant portion of the total addition. When you're only looking to add 700, this isn't a fill up the backyard project. And so that's significant. It's not that we're here because we won't compromise. We actually went through an iteration of that this week, thinking that that was in order to get approval recommendation, and it turns out that wasn't. The staff decided that what we moved back and resubmitted was not good. I don't know. When you come in here, this is the first that you actually hear what the official recommendation is. Other than we knew the word denial, we didn't know what the reasoning. That's not published until you're here, I assume. The very back of the house was, I think that's what Bruce was going to mention, was a 1994 edition before I bought the home. And that's
probably where their red line on the screen is.
That's correct. I'd like to clarify that the thinner red line is where the 50% would be if you were counting from the original rear wall. And we wanted that to be there so you could tell what the two differences would be.
So a portion of the back of the house that you're seeing on the original house, a big chunk of that back, I believe it's 10.5 feet, is actually a 94 addition to the house. It's not even the original 1930s structure.
And it wasn't permitted.
And you can clearly
so
tell it's not well done, frankly.
part of our scope was to, even though I'm not sure the back wall falls into concerns of staff, was to clean up the siding on that as well. Part of trying to clean up this 94 edition.
I'd just like to point out, because you made reference to a standard or how this is addressed. We look at this two ways, given that you're not building back or out. That is, the shall approve is based on the rear of the existing structure, not necessarily the historic structure, and that's the heavy line. And when we consider the rear of the historic structure, we also, actually, the standard is 66% back from the front. And so it's 66% back is what we're usually looking at for additions. And of course, those are additions that may be building back of the structure, out from the side of the structure. And so the 50% is what we're looking at for a shall approve, which is the closest an addition is typically looked at at this commission. So the fact that we're in front of the 50% line is where I think staff is having all of this trouble. And if that front gable were simply removed, that 7 feet, then I think this project probably would be looking very good right now. And so I think that's what I understand from staff and what I understand from previous discussions of matters of this type. I understand the issues of constraint, And that's why there is a 50% rule to help homeowners.
It seems like total scope of projects not really being ever taken into concern. And when I say that, I'm talking about the amount of square footage being added to a property. I think that's why people are lining up in support of us, is because they're seeing developers say, we're at the 50% mark, but they're also adding 2,000 square feet to a 5,000 square foot lot, which doesn't add to the value of this neighborhood or historic preservation.
Yeah, just comment too. It's not really, and it's come up before where people think staff thinks it would be a better project or more attractive or something is suddenly makes it wonderful if you just move 5 feet, and it's not really that so much. It's just a different part of the ordinance applies to it that was specifically put in to allow people some objective awareness of what would be approved without a lot of aesthetic and subjective evaluation, which is, you can do whatever you want to, but it's just which part of the ordinance is going to apply. And so when it doesn't fit that 50% thing, then it becomes more of a subjective sort of overall scope and all of that. So, I think that's very meaningful, and it is a very modest addition. So it's just kind of a question then of whether or not it's the character of it has changed so much that it impairs the character of the neighborhood. And and I understand, I appreciate it's being done very tastefully and with a lot of preservation of the material, but you really look at it and it's not the same house, and you're not preserving the bungalow, but that's not really happening in the Heights. We're getting so much of people wanting to add and change things, but we end up looking more at the character of the neighborhood. So I just also want to point out, you've kind of chosen to preserve the pool and the yard more than the house, which is...
I built that before the ordinance. Had I known that this is what I was going to face 10 years ago, who knows what I would have done different. I didn't have the foresight to know that this would be the limitations, and filling in a pool is not exactly the easiest thing.
No, I'm not
very
saying it is.
intelligent.
I'm saying, but there's always choices, and this ordinance protects the buildings, and it does protect somewhat how the buildings are sited on the lot and whether or not there's open space and all that, but it's primarily focused at the house. So it's difficult when you have other concerns about your lot and preserving other structures on the lot, that it forces you to alter the house more than maybe you would have otherwise if you had more space in the back to go. All that said, I think to me the key issue here is whether or not this really is offensive to the character of the Woodland Heights, and your evidence about the size of this compared to other homes, that there are other two-story homes on the block.
Adjacent homes,
and that your neighbors don't find it all that offensive to the character of the Heights. That to me is meaningful information about whether or not we look at this project and think it's incompatible with the character of the Woodland Heights there in your street.
I have comments and questions for staff. One of those being the removal of significant architectural materials. It seems like the only thing getting removed is composition shingles. And I don't believe we consider composition shingles to be significant architectural material. At least it's my opinion anyway. The question I have is I've now heard 3, 5, and 7 feet on the projection past the midpoint. And I would like somebody to clarify which of those 3 numbers it is.
Well, it's been changed a couple times. There was a revised plan submitted not too long ago, because we've been exchanging some feedback as far as what would make the project doable, and there's a bit of a miscommunication between myself and the applicant. Apologize for that, but I had suggested they move the addition back 5 feet, and it would be in compliance with the ordinance, and they had submitted a revised elevation that showed it moved back about 2 feet, and I said, well, that's really going to help. I'll forward this and see what happens, and unfortunately staff as a group didn't feel that was appropriate for
So is the dimension as presented and on the screen in front of us now 3 feet?
No, this is the original submission.
I don't know that from a sightline standpoint that moving it back 5 feet would, if that's the issue, the appearance of it would make much of a difference myself. And I would also like to cite, as Commissioner Elliott did too, the number of letters that the applicant included with their application in support of this from the neighbors.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that we did bring in a structural engineer to address the staff's concerns about, as we have the same concern about the siding and windows being removed from homes after they received a CO8. And so we actually submitted a letter from the engineer saying that this structure can support what we've proposed on the screen here today without removing any of the exterior facade.
Yeah, any of the four exterior walls, those would all remain as is. Just the portion of the roof that you see, obviously required for the second floor.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions for the applicant?
Can I ask a question of staff? Just as a point of clarification, if the non-original addition to the back of the house added in the 90s was removed, then the line would be the lighter cast line? So we would, if they were to submit alteration application to remove that addition and just leave it off and we start it all over from that point, then the line that's showing would be compliant if they pushed it back just shy of what looks to be about 3 feet?
That's correct, yes. We can't look at it specifically as a shallow proof. We've been trying to treat it as such, just considering the limitations of the site. So yeah, that line there would represent, if it's pushed back beyond that line, then that would be something we would have recommended approval for.
So as a relatively new member of the commission, my question would be, why are we considering it from the back of the addition instead of the back of the original historic structure? Because the addition could be an inappropriate addition that goes all the way to the back of the property.
I believe the ordinance applies to the back of the existing property, is that correct?
For the shall approve.
Yeah, for shall approve.
And in addition to that, that's only one aspect. There are other aspects that one has to do to maintain windows and other features, which is different from what we allow for more expansive projects. So it is, my understanding is that if that rear wasn't there and we were talking about that thin line, there's still some aspects of this proposal that would still keep it from being a shall approve. And so that's the issue, because if, under normal circumstances, we would be talking about 60% from the rear line, which is often helps people, and we see projects like this, often in the 6th Ward where there are smaller houses. My problem is just it's forward of the 50% line, and it's more about, it's structurally, perhaps the structure can hold the weight, but to me, culturally, from the street, it's a weight put onto to the right of way. It's a visual weight that we're seeing, and the point of being back 50%, which in this case would be the hard line, the hard red line, is to limit that impact of the second floor structure from the right of way itself. Because otherwise, we'd be talking about pushing it beyond 50% back to 66%. Wherever we're calling the rear of the structure. And so my problem with this project, why I can't support it, is just it's too far forward. And, so we've seen other projects like this, and they've reduced their square footages, and most of them have found a way to fit within the criteria.
I think Director Gaffrick wanted to speak on this.
The purpose of showing the 50% on this drawing was not to really talk about the shall approves. But and Commissioner, I'll let you say this so much better than I can say this, but the staff listens to the commission's conversations and try to look at, kind of information that you might find helpful in making decisions and try to help us shape what a recommendation is. And so we've heard the commission talk about looking at any time you add to a structure, you generally like to see it behind 50%. That's not in the ordinance in terms of when you have the 9 criteria. And Commissioner Buchek, you tend to like to see it back on the back third of the structure. So what we're trying to do is just convey a line for the commission in terms of where 50% would fall on this structure to help you think about whether in this particular instance it makes sense to come out beyond that 50% line, and given the scope of that addition on the front side. So that's really the purpose of us trying to convey this information to you, because this isn't a shall approve, and so we're just trying to show you where that 50%, the line of the original structure, and we thought it would be good for you to have, as a commission, a conversation about, in this case, this does seem to be small, and whether it is appropriate in this instance to come out beyond that front half of the structure.
Okay, do we?
I'd just like to say for the record, though, in many places, the way this is handled is that the addition is behind the structure itself, so there's no pressure on the structure itself.
Right.
And so the position that it be in the rear third or the rear fourth, in my mind, is a compromise which I'm willing to make in order to be flexible. In most districts in this country, this structure would be behind the structure, or it would not be allowed to go forward. So that's why there's a range of conversation, and that there are different opinions on the commission, and that's why we talk about these things. I try to talk about lines because I'm over my line, even when I'm compromising the moment I advocate for 66%. So that's all.
Great. Do we have any other discussion? Okay, Commissioner Mott.
I think the challenge of this neighborhood is that lots are small and the houses are small. And for me to be most comfortable with additions that go up 2 stories, I hate to see this large addition really taking over the front house that's very small. And pushing it back just relieves that burden or pressure of this larger addition overtaking the small house. And I think it preserves the streetscape, as someone's driving or walking by, the farther back the addition is placed.
I may be out of time, but I would like to at least pass around the updates on 514 Euclid, because they're meeting what you, I believe, all but David want to see, and that is an overwhelming, and maybe you all haven't had the opportunity to see that. It is an overwhelming building in the back of that home, in back of that lot. It fills the lot up. I'm not trying to pick on it, but it's relevant, it's current, and it's a block away. I have to see it every day. So to see that, and see that follow that 50% number that everyone's dug in on is disappointing, because that overwhelms that lot more than what in my opinion, that's not worth anything. But I would like to pass around those pictures of that home for you all to see that. I don't think we showed any of the pictures.
Why don't we show them on the Elmo with staff?
I had one other question about the letters of support. Those were very, very helpful, and I appreciate them. There was only one homeowner that included her address, and so I don't know how closely the support letters are in relevance to this block. Are they? One is on 423 Euclid. That's either next door or 2 houses away. The others from Woodland, and the remaining don't have their addresses.
Yeah, okay.
The Woodland address is 1 block away. Actually, it's very close. It's 513, I believe, Woodland.
The Euclid address is the house adjacent to us. We should have had all of those people. We didn't really solicit that. We were suggested that in the last couple of days. So I don't know that they knew exact. They all did speak to seeing our design, which was important, that they weren't just sending a note. And actually, some of them are pretty elaborate. I don't know that, I was copied on all of them. And some of them, I think, are relevant, people relevant to the discussion as well. But all but one, I believe, I'm sorry, all but one are in Woodland Heights, and all but 2, and those 2 live in Historic Heights. And one was a former head of the Historic Heights, not in the commission, but the district, kind of the, whatever you call it, the homeowners association.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment? In the past, we've seen diagrams for additions like this that show a diagonal sight line from the street that show
basically how far out you'd have to be before you even saw the addition. I think it would be helpful if we could see the same thing here. I don't know if anything was ever prepared, but.
Yeah, no, understood. Actually, if I can, I guess verbally describe that a little bit, because that's something we discussed in our, not the graphic itself, but the, relative to this project. I just want to give the applicant some credit. In the flat drawing really doesn't illustrate this, but it's been mentioned about how big the addition is, but it's actually considerably lower in height than a lot of what gets approved. So it does, I mean, the profile drawings are probably much more accurate as far as how the addition's going to impact the street than the flat head-on drawing. So that kind of distorts it a little bit.
I believe Commissioner Cisneros had some.
Yeah, I think we could probably go back with the footages, dimensions, et cetera, and such all afternoon. But I think what would be important to see here as part of this whole submission is an active participation of the client, of the applicant and staff, a willingness on the applicant's behalf to work with the staff and within the ordinance and what have you. And I'm really kind of prepared to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for this property.
All right, we've got a motion to grant a certificate of appropriateness for this property. Do we have a second from any other commissioner? Okay, Commissioner Hillier seconds. All those in favor of granting a certificate of appropriateness? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor. Any opposed? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 opposed. So that the certificate of appropriateness has been granted for 419 Euclid.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess that was a popular one. All right, moving on to item 2E, 431 Arlington.
Item E, 431 Arlington. The addition will be built over the rear 13, or approximately the rear 30% of the existing house, necessitating the removal of what appears to be a rear addition. The entire portion of what appears to be the original home will be preserved, with the exception of the material that needs to be removed to incorporate the addition. The existing home features horizontal lap siding with a 4-inch reveal. The addition will feature horizontal lap cementitious siding with a 6-inch reveal. The existing porch features railings and columns not believed to be original to the house. The applicant proposes to replace them with round fiberglass columns and 42-inch tall cementitious hand railings. The house's existing 1/1 double-hung wood windows will be restored and preserved, except in portions that will be removed to incorporate the rear addition. The addition will feature matching wood windows. Staff is recommending approval of this item.
Okay, we do have one speaker signed up, Mark Van Doren. Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, do we have any questions from the commission for staff? Okay, any discussion from the commission? Okay, do I hear any motions?
I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation to approve the C of A.
Okay, Commissioner Hellier's moved that we accept staff recommendation and grant a certificate of appropriateness. Do we have a second? Oh, Commissioner Homemeyer, seconds. All those in favor? Okay. All right. Any opposed? Okay, we've got one opposed and the rest in favor. Commissioner Collum, did you abstain? Yeah, and Commissioner Collum abstained. Okay. 431 Arlington has been granted a certificate of appropriateness. Moving on to item 2F, 630 West Temple Street.
Item F. The applicant proposes to construct a 930-square-foot 2-story rear addition. This addition will feature horizontal wood siding and wood windows and doors matching those in the existing house. The application is a revised version of the one submitted last month that did not meet the approval of North Hills Architectural Review Board. The applicant has since made appropriate changes to their plans and have gained the approval of their Civic Club. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of this item.
Okay. Do we have any discussion any questions for staff from the commission? Okay, any discussion among the commissioners? All right, do we have any motions? Okay, Commissioner Hellier?
Move that we accept staff's recommendation, grant the C of A.
Okay, Commissioner Hellier's moved that we grant a certificate of appropriateness, accept staff recommendation. Do we have a second? Okay. Commissioner, I'm sorry, I can't remember all the names. I have 150 names of summer school students stuffed in my brain, forgive me. Commissioner Archer has seconded. All those in favor? Okay. All right, the certificate of appropriateness is granted for 630 West Temple. All right, moving on to item 2G, 836 Key.
Item G, 836 Key. This is a revision to a C of A granted back in November 2012. The applicant originally proposed to side their addition in wood 117 siding and restore the existing historic siding that was underneath the layer of asbestos shingles. However, after removing the shingles, it became apparent that the siding had deteriorated to the point where it was not salvageable. The applicant is now proposing to install new 117 siding over the entire house with the exception of siding on the front gable, which is salvageable. The applicant also originally proposed to restore all the house's existing wood windows. However, as the renovation progressed, many of the windows were damaged. The applicant now proposes to replace these windows with new ones matching the old in size, shape, and material. Staff is recommending approval of this item.
Okay, do we have any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Okay.
I didn't see any photographs of the damaged windows that were needed to be replaced in the submission. And my understanding is that this project actually was replaced without a C of A, the windows.
Right. They had made some modifications on the spot and were red tagged for that.
So is there any documentation that there was significant deterioration of the windows that were removed without approval? I guess that's my question. I see in the submission what the type of windows that were installed. It's just there's no information. But there was something about that Pete maybe had seen something that there was deterioration.
He visited the site. You know, if that wasn't clear in the draft that I'd sent, I meant to revise that. He visited the site, but there was no assessment of material that was there because the windows, unfortunately, are gone. There's some siding left in the house that is salvageable, though.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Okay, do we have any motions from the commission? Commissioner Hilliard.
I guess I'm the designated
That's the hot chair, my friend.
mover. I move that we accept staff's recommendation and grant the C of A.
Okay, Commissioner Hilliard has moved that we accept staff recommendation and grant a certificate of appropriateness. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Homeyer seconds. All those in favor? Okay. And raise them high. Let me see everybody. We got all those in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in favor. Any opposed? Okay, 1, 2, 3 opposed. Okay, the certificate of appropriateness has been granted for item 2G, 836 Key. Moving on to item 2H, 1307 Ashland.
Item H. The applicant proposes to construct a 3,976 square foot, two-story home with attached garage. The proposed house will be 39 feet wide, 54 feet deep, and will feature an eave height of approximately 22 feet. It will feature a covered front porch over approximately 3/4 of the front elevation. The proposed house will feature a 15-foot front setback and 5-foot setbacks on each side. The house and garage will be sided in 6-inch horizontal lap cementitious siding with a 4-inch reveal, and the house will feature a combination of wood, double-hung 1/1 windows, and casement windows, all made of wood. Staff is recommending approval of this item.
Okay, we do have a speaker signed up, Mr. Mark Van Doren again. Same thing? Okay, so we'll bring up if there are any questions or issues. All right, do we have any questions for staff from the commission?
I just have one question for staff. Regarding the width of this structure, is it nominally similar to other houses that were historically built of this type in this district? In terms of the proportion between this house and let's say the next house, which is similar, appeared different based on the size of windows configuration and the way that things are arranged. So is it within the range of width?
Right.
39 feet?
Yes, under 40 feet would be appropriate based on some of the rare two-story houses that are, in Heights West and what's been approved recently, so.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions for staff? All right, do we have any discussion among the commission? Okay, hearing no discussion, do we have any motions? Okay. Commissioner Homemeyer has moved that we accept staff recommendation, grant a certificate of appropriateness. Do we have a second? All right, Commissioner Cisneros seconded. All those in favor? All right, and it's unanimous. Item 2H, 1307 Ashland has been granted a certificate of appropriateness. Moving on to item 2I, 1309 Ashland.
Item I. The applicant proposes to construct a 3,200 square foot two-story home with detached garage. This is actually right next door to the previous item. The proposed house will be 37 feet wide, 50 feet deep, and will feature an eave height of approximately 22 feet. The front elevation will feature a full-width front porch, and at each side of the second story will feature a bump-out cantilever 2 feet from the exterior wall. The proposed house will feature a 15-foot front setback and 5-foot setbacks on each side. The house will feature a combination of double-hung 1/1 and casement windows, all made of wood. Window specifications are noted in the site plan and elevation drawings. Staff feels the application proposed complies with the ordinance with the exception of a pair of second-floor cantilevered bump-outs. These are an incompatible exterior feature with contributing structures throughout Houston Heights West. Therefore, staff feels the application does not comply with criterion 2 with regards to new construction and recommends denial of this item.
Okay, do we have any questions for staff about item I, 1309 Ashland? Okay, do we have any discussion among the commissioners?
Right, sort of a question and discussion. I mean, the two-story and large houses do exist in the Heights, but this one just seems exceptionally like a cube, more than kind of what I think of as in the Heights, where the upper floor is usually kind of set back a little bit. Is that kind of the issue here, or is it just the overall size of it, or?
The staff's feeling was, staff's feeling was that the second floor cantilever bump outs were not a typical feature or appropriate feature.
So, okay, it's primarily those
bump
extensions,
yes.
The shoulders. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions or discussion? Okay. Commissioner Cohen?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I didn't want to be redundant, but Mr. Van Dorn is here to speak on it if need be.
Oh, yeah. Well, would you like to speak on this one, Mr. Van Dorn? All right, here we go. Okay. Go ahead and state your name for the minutes.
Yeah. Mark Van Dorn, APD Design. This house, you got the Elmo part up? On the rendering, they really don't stick out as much as they do on the two-dimensional drawing. And you're absolutely correct. That it's probably one of the most horrible-looking houses in 2D I think I've ever had the pleasure of drawing. In 3D, and where these bump outs occur,
it's not that
they
big.
occur, I think, they're somewhere close to 70 feet back from the center line of the right-of-way. Also, this is the exact same house that we did at 409 Cortland in the South District and was approved. And my argument was, with staff, was that I'm trying to use some gauge of what we've done before, that we can do it again, to try to get that clear path, to this whole thing put together. So I did put together a drawing today with them removed. Just on the 2D drawing. And I think, yes, it looks like a dramatically different house, but you'll never see it in 2D like you're looking at it in that drawing. So I'd like to leave them on. I have been authorized to remove them by the client, but I think it's a nice little feature on the side of the house. Also, I've taken great lengths to move these houses well off the property line, not the 3 feet, but 5, 6 foot 4 inches off each property line. And a little bump out here and there I didn't think was going to be that significant of an issue.
That's a question for staff. Is if the bump out extended to the ground so that there was a first floor extension so that it wasn't hanging out, if you will, because there is apparently maybe there is room on the site, would that be an issue for staff?
Actually, it's interesting you mentioned that there, again, like I said, there aren't a lot of two-story homes, or contributing two-story homes in this district, but I went looking around for cantilevers and bump outs, and I didn't see, a whole lot that were just on the second floor, but I did see a couple that had a bump out that went all the way down to.
And from what I can tell from the floor plan of this house, would that affect the first floor detrimentally if you had?
Yes, it would. I think it ended up being about 70 square feet. And on this drawing, I've pulled the back of the house out 2 feet and took the dormers off, compensating for the square footage only on the second floor. We really don't want to get these too much larger than they are right now, because they're rather large as they stand, and I don't think adding another 70 square feet would be in the best interest of the project. But I would like to keep them. It's the position of the client, it's the position of our firm. I would hope that we could come to some kind of resolution on that where we could, but we understand if we can't.
Okay, I think Commissioner Mon has.
I see that the new construction meets the typical setbacks with proportions with its neighbors. I really don't have an issue with these bump outs. I think it's compatible.
Okay, Commissioner Hilliard. I think Mr. Van Dorn.
Something I might add, we tore down a large metal warehouse, and this was 5 lots that we turned into 4. We reduced the amount of houses that could be built there so that the last lot could be of full size, because there's a 10-foot setback on 13th Street. We got rid of a really bad blight. There's going to be 4 two-story homes. I believe the lots are going to be sold to another local builder in the Heights who will build the 2 end lots, and you'll see those coming shortly, hopefully next month. And I think it's going to be a real transition for that corner, and the neighbors are really, really happy that it's gone.
Okay, I believe Commissioner Hilliard.
Question for staff. Mr. Van Dorn has provided a 3D rendering of a home that looks essentially identical at 409 Cortlandt and stated that we have approved that project, and I'd just like to...
Correct. I think it was 2010. Was that right?
Yeah. Yes, 2010, and a couple just moved in, a couple kids, and they love it. Love the house. Love the neighborhood.
Well, the reason I ask that question is we've heard complaints that we have approved projects in the past that were very similar or close to identical to projects before us that are then getting denied. And I don't think we should be taking that route, but and if indeed we have approved one that's essentially the same as what they've put forth today, I'm in favor of supporting a certificate of appropriateness.
I'm in.
Okay. Go
Motion.
ahead, Commissioner Archer.
I'd like to move that we give a certificate of appropriateness to this particular home.
Okay, Commissioner Archer has moved that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for this project. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Homeyer seconded. All those in favor? Okay. Right. Looks unanimous. Any opposed? Nope. All right. Item 1I, 1309 Ashland has been granted a certificate of appropriateness. Moving on to item 2K, 518 Harvard.
Good afternoon, new Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Delaney Harris Finch, and I submit for your consideration Agenda Item K at 518 Harvard Street, an application for approval to construct a 2-story addition to a contributing 1-story residence. The 2nd-story addition will be set back 34 feet or 58% from the front wall. The proposed addition will be flush with the existing sidewall setbacks. The tallest ridge height of the addition will be located approximately 43 feet behind the front wall and will measure 32 feet above grade. The tallest eave height will measure 22 feet above grade. All existing siding and trim will remain on the original portion of the structure. The addition will be clad in lap siding and will feature windows to match the existing. At the north side of the elevation, the third existing window from the front will be removed, and the first window from the front will be relocated to accommodate new interior configurations. The applicant met and worked with staff on the project, and although the addition encroaches past that 1/3 of the existing structure line from the rear, other design decisions and concessions, including retaining all existing materials on the front, sides, and half of the rear wall, modifying the second level connection at the north side to not extend past the existing, and applying a hipped roof to allow the proposed addition to not dominate the existing structure from the public right-of-way, lead staff to recommend approval of the C of A.
Okay. Do we have any questions for staff for 518 Harvard? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, do we hear any motions? Okay, Commissioner Cisneros? Okay, Commissioner Cisneros has moved that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for item 518. Do we hear a second for that? Okay, Commissioner Stava seconds. All those in favor? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, Commissioner Buchek is opposed, and the item has been approved for a certificate of appropriateness for 518 Harvard. Moving on to item 2L, 702 Woodland Street.
Item L, 702 Woodland. In August 2012, a new residential construction application was submitted for the property. The HAHC deferred the application to allow the applicant to consult with staff on the design and approval criteria. The applicant made significant changes, and the revised application was granted a C of A in September 2012. Plans were submitted for review and stamping by the Historic Office prior to being submitted by permitting. Subsequent revisions were made to the permit documents and in the field without review by the planning staff for compliance with the C of A, and they were outside of the scope, the approved scope. We have since revised our procedures for plan review and have worked with the permit office to increase awareness of our procedures. Last month, this project was deferred by the HHC due to an outstanding deed restriction setback violation that was in legal review. The City of Houston Legal Department has decided not to take action on the deed setback violations. The applicant is requesting approval for the following revisions that have been completed. Revise the ridge height from 32 feet 1 inch to 33 feet 8 inches. Revise the hip roof connection between the rear, middle, and front sections of the residence as seen on Reagan Street. Install a 1-foot pony wall above the second level at the front section and a 2-foot 6-inch pony wall above the rear garage section of the residence. And revise the eave height from 23 feet to 24 feet at the front and from 21 to 24 at the rear. And revise divided pattern, quantity, size, and location of windows. Staff finds that many of the revisions are compatible, including the modifications to the windows. An issue remains with the revised height. Staff does not find that the application meets criteria 3 and 4. The front pony wall creates a second floor height that appears taller and heavier than the first level, which is not compatible with proportions of contributing structures in the district. Please see the photograph in your packet. The previously approved eave height and width of the structure was already on the high end of compatibility in the district. During the review of the August 2012 application, height was one of the major concerns and contributed to staff's recommendation of denial. The HHC deferred the August, and the application reduced the dimension of several components to minimize the height of the structure for compatibility. And staff is recommending denial of the application.
Okay. We do have 2 speakers signed up for this item, Sam Giannakis and Donnie Schellenbarger. Okay. If we could have, I guess, Mr. Schellenbarger?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can approach, sir. Go ahead.
Donnie Schellenbarger, Sullivan Brothers Builders. I represent the client. We're building the home. In regards to the pony wall, that was a field change made in discussion with the client on the job site, primarily due to the window height there. In our experience with building historical homes, we've traditionally found the pony heights or pony walls work well with the elevational look, but it was in discussion with as a field change with the client.
Okay. All right, do any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Schellenberger? Okay, thank you for coming down, sir. All right, Mr. Giannakis, would you like to approach?
Only if you guys have questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions? All right, doesn't look like it. Okay. Do we have any discussion among the commission? All right, any motions?
I'm sorry, I just do have a question. The ordinance talks about the eave height, but the staff's comment here talk about a tall eave height combined with a large overall width contribute overall height, which is not compatible with the typical structures. I mean, what's the eave height? I think we're supposed to be comparing eave height to eave height, not overall height.
Correct. The eave height is 24 feet. The approved was 23. So that comment really needs to fall more under number 3 and not number 4, where we're talking about proportions. So the proportion of the overall height with the overall width, and especially now that that second story seems to be taller and heavier, that's where the issue is with the raise in the eave height, not the actual dimension of the eave height.
It is compatible with typical eave height in the district then?
24, yeah. It's okay. It's on the high side, but yes.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion or questions for staff? Oh, Mr. Giannakis, go ahead.
Sorry.
Sam Janukas with Creo Design. I just want to add that we are well within what is permittable in the city and within the deed restrictions as far as our height. We're at 33 feet 8 inches, and I think 36 is a number. So it was a mistake in the field and really a hardship for the client. If we had to take off that pony wall, it'd probably be $30,000 to do. And the roof is on the house. It's pretty much all the mechanicals are in. We're on down the road. So it was a mistake, and it was done in the field. And the client regrets it, but we are within permittable limits.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Well, I don't have a question for the applicant. I just have a question. What will the practical effect be of denying a certificate of appropriateness on a completed or essentially completed home? I mean, I think sort of that we should be aware of the consequences of our acts. Does anyone know?
I think Director Gafford.
Well, it would be treated like any other unpermitted work. I mean, you'd have to stop work on it eventually. It would have to come down, but and there's a process for that. But if you don't grant up, a C of A should be thought of like a building permit in that respect.
Okay. All right, Director Gafford, did you? Okay.
If I can just be more specific about what that really means, nobody would be able to live in this house until someone tore off the top roof, rebuilt it, and reapplied for certificate of appropriateness. Is that kind of how it would go?
If that's what would be required to grant a C of A, then yes. Yeah, in order for the commission to find that the structure was in proportion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, do I hear any motions? Okay.
I make a motion that we grant the certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, Commissioner Hellier has made a motion that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for 702 Woodland Street. Do I hear a second? Okay, Commissioner Elliott seconds. All those in favor of granting a certificate of appropriateness, raise your hands, please. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, any opposed? Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opposed. Okay, the certificate of appropriateness, and an abstain for Commissioner Cosgrove. So is that a 4 or 5? If you're opposed, raise your hands again. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 opposed, 1 abstain. 2 abstained. Oh, 2 abstained, okay. All right, 5 opposed, 2 abstained, and 4 in favor. I guess it's a no on the certificate of appropriateness. Okay, moving on to item 2M. 917 Columbia Street.
917 Columbia Street is an application for the construction of a new residence with attached alley loading garage. The proposed residence is a 1.5-story single-family dwelling measuring 34 feet wide at the front 23 feet of the structure and 94 feet deep. The tallest roof ridge height is 32 feet with an eave height of 23 feet. The residence will be set back 21 feet from the front property line as required by a minimum building line ordinance for the block. The residence will be set back 8 foot 3 inches on both the north and south property lines for the front 23 feet of the structure. At 44 feet behind the front of the property line, the structure extends out on both the north and south sides to the 3 foot building setback line. The residence features a hipped roof with a front and 2 side dormers with shed roofs. The residence will be clad in horizontal siding, and the rear of the structure will feature brick veneer. Windows will be wood double hung, and the residence will feature 3 bays at the front facade with a full width porch. The applicant met with staff and made several suggested revisions to the project, including removing non-typical features such as shutters, French doors, transoms above windows, and modifying foundation details. In review of the proposal in comparison with typical details of 1.5-story contributing homes in the district, staff finds the application meets criteria and is recommending approval.
Okay, we do have a speaker signed up for 917 Columbia, Jana Oswald and Brian Nimzag.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Nimzak. My wife, Jan Oswald's here. We just came to we're the owners of 917. We just came to show our support. So to the extent that there are any questions or anything, we'll address them. But
great. Well, thank you for coming down to the commission. Do we have any questions for the applicant or for staff? Okay. Do we have any motions? Okay. Commissioner Archer has moved that we approve and grant a certificate of appropriateness for 917 Columbia. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Cosgrove seconds. All those in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous. A certificate of appropriateness has been granted for 917 Columbia Street. Moving on to item 2N, 1101 Heights Boulevard.
Chair?
Yes, sir. Oh, sure. Commissioner Cisneros is recusing himself from this item. All right.
Item 2N, 1101 Heights Boulevard. At the time of the Historic District designation in 2008, the property contained the Perry Swiley House, a landmark and contributing Queen Anne cottage. The owners of the Perry Swiley House was granted a C of A to be relocated to the northern side of the large lot in August 2008. At the same time, another C of A was granted for new construction of a one-story retail building at the southern side of the lot. The commercial building was never constructed, and the southern portion has remained vacant. The current application is to construct a new 3,000 square foot commercial building at the corner of 11th and Heights. The proposed structure is 36 feet wide by 85 feet deep and is 23 feet tall at the top of the parapet wall, with a 30-foot tall parapet detail up the 11th Street elevation. The storefront will feature metal and glass storefront, and the building is proportionally consistent with the adjacent retail center to the west of the site, which is not in the district, and shorter than the historic resident adjacent on Heights Boulevard. Both Heights Boulevard and 11th Street are considered major thoroughfares by the City of Houston and require a 25-foot building setback. The proposed building will be set back approximately 40 feet and 45 feet, respectively. The exterior features of the building are designed to be compatible with the early 20th century contributing commercial buildings of the district with Art Deco stylings. After evaluation of the proposal with other contributing commercial buildings in the district, staff is recommending deferral of the project. We feel positive about the project this far, but would like more information on materials and an opportunity to discuss other details regarding compatibility with proportions. We have not seen a lot of new commercial applications in our districts, so we'd like to take extra care working on this project with the applicant if they are willing. And also our office has been contacted by an ad hoc committee of Heights East property owners who have expressed concerns and questions about the project, and they would like the opportunity to discuss the proposal with the applicant if possible.
Okay, thank you. I guess we need to, well, first of all, is there any discussion among the commissioner, questions for staff? So I guess we need to make a motion to defer, is that correct?
Or if you want to have any.
Oh, sure, Commissioner Mond had a question.
I do support the deferral for the reasons you stated. It's a complicated corner because the Heights is largely residential, where 11th is largely commercial. And I'm hoping that this can be resolved. I would love to see whatever could be done with landscaping to keep the Heights elevation buffered, to continue the appearance and setback of residential. I notice there's parking spaces right against the adjacent residential property, and that really bothers me.
Thank you.
And also those spaces directly on Heights Boulevard. I think heavily buffered, I think you probably could get away with it.
Okay, do we have any other questions or discussion? Commissioner Allen?
Yeah, I think it is one of the interesting things about the Heights is there are still some commercial buildings, and they are of a often a similar style. And I'm just wondering, is that kind of what the deferral is for, to kind of do more of an inventory of the commercial buildings, or even what would potentially be compatible for even earlier of the period of significance for the Heights, or what?
Sure.
Yeah.
So far, we were able to really evaluate the photos that are included in the packet, which are almost all of the remaining commercial structures that are contributing in this district. It would be nice to also be able to evaluate maybe structures that have been removed or changed, or some historic structures as well, and just really look at some of the proportions of these and address some of the site concerns that we had, similar to Commissioner Mott.
And I know we've before, when they've had to try to do adaptive reuse of an old commercial building, that they run afoul of a lot of the parking ordinance obligations that are put on new buildings, and I hope that would be taken into consideration with some of the constraints the builder might be under to provide parking, which is not going to make it look historic, I would think, but I'm sure there's some ways to ameliorate that. So that's all I have to say.
Oh, sure. Would you like to approach and state your name for us, sir?
My name is Brian Dana, and I've saved 8 buildings in the Heights, 8 commercial buildings in the Heights in the last 5 years. The adjacent building where Lola sits, 1102 Yale, is our property, and it was built in the 30s. It was a former grocery store. We, restored it to its original glory. We got a good brick from the city of Houston. I live and work in the Heights for the last 8 years. I care very much about the character of our neighborhood, and I appreciate what you guys have been doing. I think it's our only way in this city to really preserve culture and history. We were trying to, this property was overpriced for many, many years, and finally the owner got right on his price, and now we can afford to create something special in this corner, which I take into very serious consideration, is preserving the character of the neighborhood, like I have all over the neighborhood. We chose tilt wall construction. Most people wouldn't do a small tilt wall construction. I don't know how many of you are familiar with tilt wall, but it's 5 inches thick of concrete with rebar in it. And it's, you're able to get very creative with the product. I mean, you can cast into the tilt wall, you can create beautiful artwork on the side of the building. You can do a lot of things with it. And it's low maintenance over time. If I were not to own it one day, and somebody from California were to buy it, you can really let this product go. It's very low maintenance. It needs to be repainted every, I don't know, 10 years or so. So I chose that construction for longevity reasons. And we can, the architect and I can get creative with some historical features and really create a landmark there. We're also, it's a nod to the building next door, yes, and I want to paint, the 2 buildings the same color. My tenants next door don't like the blue and gray. They've asked me to change the color, so whatever we decide to paint this color, I'm probably going to repaint the building next door where Lola is as well. So I'm trying to tie it all in together. So we'll have 2 corners. We'll have a corner, lit intersection at Heights and a lit intersection at Yale. So we're trying to create a modern twist here too. We don't want to just stamp out, old-looking Art Deco buildings. The architect is very creative, and we've come up with some good ideas, we think, as a nod to Art Deco and as something that fits in scale, but is a little more modern, a little more showing that we're progressive in this neighborhood as well. So I don't know if you guys have any other questions, but I would like to ask for, obviously a certificate of appropriateness here and get on with my project. I'd be glad to visit with anybody on the side, and I know there's somebody that has been emailing ad hoc representative here, and he was concerned. I talked to him on the phone, and he was concerned about traffic. I don't think this committee is, I don't think it's talking about traffic. Maybe I'm wrong. It's talking about the architectural significance. I'm pushing my driveways as farthest from the corner as possible for safety reasons. And I think someone mentioned parking earlier. The city only requires me to have about 12 or 13 parking spaces. Well, I have 24. And the reason I do that all over the neighborhood, I buy extra land so I can really provide off-street parking spaces. We developed 5 buildings along White Oak Drive near Fitzgerald's, and we saved 5 old structures. And we even knocked one down, an old warehouse, to create more parking, bought more lots across the street. I mean, we really care about parking and comfortability and usability of our product. So this has twice as much parking as the city requires me to have, twice. So that adds somewhat of a safety factor, in my opinion, because you don't have people driving all over the place looking for parking. So it's easy to understand, it's easy to pull in, it's easy to find a place, it's easy to use, user-friendly product.
I still understand, you'd like us to make a decision about your current application. You prefer not to defer it, you're opposed to defer?
Yes, I would definitely prefer not to defer it.
Okay. And is the, let me ask staff then a question. Is the application complete?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if it's complete, I think he's entitled to it. I mean, to me, the renderings here, I don't know if we really have a lot of detail we normally do. Is that because you were anticipating a deferral, or because there was some deficiency in the application, the material they provided?
A little bit of both. There wasn't a lot of detail in the materials and what those were. But there are a lot of materials that can be used that are appropriate for commercial structures in this district. It's just really honing in on what these are, and then just having the time to evaluate with a commercial application as opposed to our regular applications.
Okay.
I think in the, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we put on there tilt wall and stucco as material, right? No? No. Okay.
Well,
those are the materials.
I just say, I mean, it does look kind of hard, just looking at the gray wall. This is a tilt wall, precast concrete wall. I would have questions about whether or not that's going to ultimately appear visually compatible with other materials out there. I mean, I think you're right. Obviously, you know better than I do that you can do a lot with texture and whatever to make it more compatible. I can't really tell from what's been provided if the end result is going to be compatible or not. Okay. So I guess I'd kind of like to see that develop a little bit more too.
Okay.
Okay. Any more discussion? Commissioner Mott?
I second what Commissioner Elliott said, and I really have no issue with you, the nod to deco and making it look contemporary. In fact, I prefer that. Mm-hmm. And I'm familiar with a lot of your other projects, and thank you for what you've done in the district.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, do we hear any motions?
I'll make a motion we accept staff's recommendation for this item and defer this application.
Okay, Commissioner Mott has moved that we accept staff recommendation and defer the item. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, Commissioner Garcia Herrera seconds it. All those in favor of deferral? Okay. All right, that's unanimous. The item has been deferred.
Thank you for your consideration. See y'all next month.
Thank you. Oh, and make that client at Lola happy. They make some good food. All right, moving on to item 2R, 525 Bayland.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Erin Glennon, and I submit for your consideration Agenda Item 2R. The applicant requests approval of a certificate to construct a two-story, 1,511 square foot addition with attached garage to an existing one-story, 1,798 square foot contributing single-family residence. The proposed first floor of the addition will begin at the original rear wall of the residence, and the addition will be inset 3 feet on the west elevation, facing Northwood Street, and extend 4 feet to the east on the east elevation. The addition will measure 42 feet deep and 32 feet wide on the first floor. The second story will measure 56 feet deep and 32 feet wide, and will feature a hip roof projection that will come forward 9 feet on the existing structure and will be 25 feet back from the front facade. The addition will have an eave height of 22 feet and will have an overall height of 30 feet to the ridge. The addition will feature a front gable-on hip roof and will be clad with 117 wood lap siding to match the existing. The proposed addition will be built on a pier and beam foundation with flare foundation skirting and will be clad with wood lap siding to match the existing. The attached garage will be built on a slab foundation. And the addition will feature wood sash windows to match the existing. And staff recommends approval of the certificate.
Okay. We do have a speaker signed up for item 2R, Sam Giannakis.
Only if you have a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Do we have any questions for the applicant from the commission? Okay, it doesn't look like it. Do we have any questions for staff or discussion? All right. Do we hear any motions? Okay. Commissioner Stava moves. Okay, that we accept staff recommendation and grant a certificate of appropriateness. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Cosgrove seconds. All those in favor? All right. And that's unanimous. 525 Bayland has been granted a certificate of appropriateness. Moving on to item 2T, 907 West Cottage.
The applicant proposed to construct a two-story, 1,412 square foot addition to an existing one-story contributing residence at the May 2013 commission meeting. The proposal was deferred to allow the applicant to work with staff, and the applicant has revised the two-story addition to reduce the impact on the existing structure. The two-story addition will have an L-shaped footprint and begin at the original rear wall. The proposed first floor will measure 18 feet wide and 37 feet deep, and the attached garage will measure 22 feet wide and 21 feet deep. The second story will begin at the rear wall and will measure 37 feet deep and 14 feet wide at the front of the addition and 42 feet wide at the rear of the addition. The addition will feature a cross gable roof and will be clad with cementitious lap siding. The existing 117 wood siding will be retained and repaired where damaged or deteriorated. The existing residence features 1/1 wood sash windows, and the windows will be retained and repaired. The addition will feature 1/1 wood sash windows to match the existing. The existing pier and beam foundation will be raised 8 inches, and the proposed addition will be built on a pier and beam foundation to match the existing. And staff recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness.
Okay. All right. Do we have any questions for staff? Okay. Any discussion on the commission? Okay. Do I hear any motions?
Did it get approval from the Norhill?
The Norhill Review Committee hasn't officially sat down and reviewed or voted on the addition, and they did express some concern to us today about the addition, but staff does find that the application as it is now does meet the 11 criteria for addition under the ordinance.
Okay, but obviously the deed restrictions of East Norhill
There
would supersede
could be.
anything this commission does. That's correct. Okay, do we have any other questions for staff? Okay, Commissioner Elliott?
I'm sorry about the deed restriction issue again. I thought last time we determined or understood that the Norhill deed restrictions require you to get approval by the Architectural Review Committee before you're in compliance. Isn't that a necessary step, or is it sort of they're just kind of weighing in, but it's not implicating the deed restrictions?
They're required to get approval within the deed restrictions, whether or not they do that prior or after they come to the commission. I don't think there's.
Yeah, I don't think there's any order.
Well, except that the ordinance says the activity complies with the applicable deed restrictions, and if they haven't gotten approval.
Then we don't know.
Then they haven't really complied yet.
Mhm.
I mean, I just.
They do meet tomorrow.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we did get some conflicting information and found out that they had concerns about it this morning, so.
Right. But, I mean, regardless of whether or not they have concerns about it, I mean, we can't really make a judgment about whether or not the compliance has occurred already, because well, actually we can. It hasn't occurred yet.
The check on the criteria was a mistake, so.
Oh, okay.
That
So, I mean, actually, okay. I mean, I
It should have been left.
I just have a problem with this part of the ordinance, because I think it's very hard for us to judge the deed restrictions. We don't have them in front of us. We're not the people who are supposed to do it, but if there's actually a procedure they're supposed to follow, and we do objectively know they haven't followed that and completed that yet, then it seems to me we can objectively state they have not complied with the applicable deed restrictions, in which case we shouldn't be granting a certificate of appropriateness. And it's not just being picky about it, it's that, you know, we sort of lend our weight to saying, oh yeah, it's fine, when really we should be sort of agnostic about it. That's my point of view. I don't know. It's just a problem. But it sounds to me if they haven't gotten approval yet by Norhill, they haven't complied with the deed restrictions, but maybe I'm wrong.
I think that's a very good point,
I
Commissioner.
wouldn't say that they've violated their deed restrictions either until they've begun construction without the input from their Architectural and Review Committee. And I think absent some kind of violation of the standards or deed restrictions as it would affect the project, the commission shouldn't really assume that there is a deed restriction violation until the ARC weighs in. Those are simply two sets of two different bodies that have to give approval to the project before I can proceed. But when the review committee looks at the standards of the deed restrictions to determine whether those whether the project complies, those are the kinds of things that a certificate of appropriateness cannot approve doing, not necessarily that you have to go to your architectural review committee. In fact, if they get a certificate of appropriateness and never proceed with construction, they'll not have violated any aspect of their deed restrictions at all.
Well, not to belabor this because it's a long meeting, but it says complies. I mean, I'm kind of reading a procedural aspect into the deed restrictions, and we're not called on to say they're definitely in violation. We're called on to bless the fact they're in compliance, and I can't read that as procedural compliance too, but I understand what you're saying. It's maybe more of just a substantive agreement with it, not necessarily every detail, but I never liked that part of the ordinance.
Okay, do we have any other discussion? All right, now that all are in, oh, there we go. Commissioner Ward.
Not discussion so much as a comment, much improved over last month's submittal. Thank you to staff and the applicants.
Okay, any other discussion? Questions for staff? Okay, do I hear any motions? Is everybody really sleepy?
What I understood from the city attorney is we can vote on this.
I think that the requirement to obtain the approval of an architectural review committee, sort of a procedural requirement of deed restrictions, is not really the kind of thing that the criteria of the Code of Ordinances is asking you to comply with when it says that deed restrictions must not be violated. It's similar to when a building permit office asks that the project comply with deed restrictions. At some point, the Architectural Review Committee has to look at the plans and approve them, otherwise there will be a violation. But what can't happen is a permit be issued that violates the standards of the deed restrictions as it pertains to the individual project. It's as though two different bodies look at the deed restrictions and decide that the project complies with them. So I don't think that that provision of the deed restrictions prevents the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness.
So if I may add, then, if we voted on this matter today and it were approved, and it were later not approved by the deed control committee, and the applicant made changes to make that committee approve the project, it would come back for us to review again.
If the project was changed, that's really.
If it was not approved by the other
That's
body.
right.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve this project as submitted, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, all right. Put that project to the test, Commissioner Buchek. All right, Commissioner Buchek has moved that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for 907 West Cottage. Do I hear a second? Second. All right, Commissioner Archer has seconded. All those in favor? All right. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Commissioner Elliott abstains on the test. All right, here we go. So 907 West Cottage is granted a certificate of appropriateness. Moving on to item 2W, 1014 Key Street.
The applicant is applying for a retroactive C of A for the replacement of 2 1/1 wood sash windows and 2 non-original glass block windows with new single-light wood windows, and is proposing to replace a non-original metal paneled front door. The non-original paneled metal front entry door will be replaced with a new 9-light wood panel door. The proposed door will feature double glass and wood mullions. 2 existing 1/1 wood sash windows on the east elevation will be replaced with a new single-light wood casement window. The opening around the new casement window will be infilled with brick reused from the rear of the structure. A non-original glass block window located on the east elevation addition will be replaced with a single-light awning-style window. The opening around the window will be infilled with lap siding to match the existing. A non-original glass block window located on the south elevation of the east elevation addition will be removed, and the opening will be infilled with lap siding to match the existing. Staff recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness with the condition that the existing brick sill located in the opening of the 2 sash windows be retained.
Okay.
And I believe the homeowner is here if you have any questions.
Okay, would the homeowner like to approach? Okay. Only if we have questions, okay. All right, do we have any questions for the applicant? All right, any discussion among the commission? All right, no discussion, any motions?
I move we accept staff's recommendation for the approval of the C of A for this project.
Okay, Commissioner Mott has moved that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for, with conditions.
Thank you, with the conditions as stated by staff.
As stated by staff in the application. Okay, do we have a second on that motion? Okay, Commissioner Stava seconds. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. We've granted a certificate of appropriateness with the stated conditions in the application for 1014 Key Street. Moving on to item 2X, 1127 Arlington.
The applicant requests approval of a certificate to construct a new 2-story, 3,600 square foot single-family residence and a new detached 2-story alley loading garage. The proposed residence will measure 35 feet wide and 52 feet deep. The residence will have an eave height of 23 feet and an overall height of 36 to the highest ridge. The proposed front gable will have an overall height of 35 feet to the ridge. The proposed wraparound porch will measure 43 feet wide and 8 feet deep on the front, 4 feet deep on the sides, and it will extend back 30 feet on each side. The proposed residence will be built on a pier and beam foundation and will feature brick foundation skirting. The foundation height will have a height of 3 feet 2 inches. The residence will feature a cross gable roof and will be clad with cementitious horizontal lap siding. The residence will feature wood sash, casement, and fixed windows. The proposed 2-story garage will measure 22 feet wide and 22 feet deep. The garage will have an overall height of 27 feet to the ridge. The garage will be built on a slab foundation and will be clad with cementitious lap siding. The proposed residence features a large wraparound porch with an overall width of 43 feet, 8 inches and 35 feet wide. The staff feels that the proposed residence width is not typical of the district and has recommended to the applicant that the width be reduced. The applicant wishes to proceed with the wraparound porch, but has also prepared an alternate design with a full-width front porch. The alternate design features a porch that measures 32 feet wide, which is more appropriate to the historic district and the lot width. Staff recommends approval of the certificate with the following conditions: that the porch be 32 feet in width as shown in the alternate design, and the foundation should be brick piers with wood lattice between rather than full brick skirting.
All right. We do have three people signed up to speak on this project. The first one is Greg Swedberg. Okay. The next is Aaron Scheffler, followed by Joy Tober. Okay, Mr. Swedberg, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Greg Swedberg with 2Scale Architects. I'm here to respond to any objections or questions that you may have. I'm the architect for the project.
Okay. All right, thank you. And Mr. Scheffler?
Thank you, Commission. We've tried to carefully follow the guidelines that have been set forth, and I think in our preferred design, we've managed to come up with something that's historically significant, unique, but not inappropriately unique, and very objectively, I think it's beautiful. While we recognize that, staff has mentioned that 43 feet wide is wider than I guess comparable historic structures in the neighborhood, what we're talking about is a few feet on either side of the main structure of the house itself. As is shown in the application, the house is a 35-foot wide house. The 43 feet is for the first level porch only. I believe very strongly that the overall impact on the neighborhood of a 35-foot wide house with an additional couple of feet of an open porch is much less dramatic than for a full 2-story, 39-foot wide house, which has been approved on numerous occasions. So while we're prepared and to reluctantly proceed with our alternate design, I sincerely hope and I request that you all consider what I think will be a much more valuable structure to the neighborhood, which is proposed in our first design. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scheffler. Do we have any questions for Mr. Scheffler?
I do. Do you have any evidence, or have you gathered any data about other buildings there that would suggest that the dimensions in your preferred design are in fact compatible with existing dimensions in the neighborhood?
Not specifically to the dimensions. I know we're within the City of Houston setback requirements. We have found two two-story houses within the historic heights that have full wraparound porches. The first is a national historic landmark, and the other is a City of Houston historic landmark. I hope one day this one is as well. So, but no, to specifically answer your question, no, we haven't discovered any, or we haven't looked for any houses that are 43 feet wide.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any more questions for Mr. Scheffler? Okay, thank you. All right, our next speaker on this item is Joy Tober.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Please excuse the voice. My name is Joy Tober. I live in the Houston Heights Historic District East, and I oppose the proposed new construction at 1127 Arlington. While I applaud the architect for designing a beautiful home that incorporates many of the architectural features found within the district, I feel the proposed new construction is grossly out of proportion and clearly does not satisfy the criteria as written in the ordinance. The proposed 3-foot 2-inch side setbacks are not are not only not typical of the neighborhood, but did not exist during the period of significance for this district, as can be seen in digital Sanborn maps of the area. The lots were designed so that each residence was separated from its neighbor by the width of the driveway, which is much more than just 3 feet 2 inches. The proposed 3,600 square foot home, measuring 43 feet 8 inches in width, 52 feet 6 inches in depth, and 36 feet 11 inches in height, is clearly out of proportion to typical contributing two-story structures in the area. There are no existing contributing structures that have such exaggerated proportions. The front gable, which is most visible, will have an overall height of 35 feet 10 inches. This would be quite arresting for one traveling through the district to come upon such an imposing structure. There should be compatibility and cohesiveness to a historic district when it comes to new construction. Unfortunately, these massive newly constructed homes are quickly outnumbering original historic structures and are significantly altering the historic character of the district. I ask this commission to take a more critical look at the proposed new construction before you today to determine if the setbacks, the scale, and massing are appropriate and typical of the historic district as spelled out in the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, do we have any other questions for staff? Okay, Commissioner Mon?
Is this house on a corner lot? How do you get to the garage?
It's an alley loading garage, yes. And within the ordinance, we don't regulate the side setbacks. It's mainly we're focusing on the front setback.
I'm sorry. The ordinance, I mean, it says typical setbacks, but you all don't...
For the front of the house, from the front property line to the front of the structure.
Okay. Well, I mean, setbacks, it doesn't say the front setback. Have we never looked at other setbacks? I don't remember that coming up before.
I have a question first also. I'm sorry, was he finished?
I was just going to answer that question. Yes, it has been interpreted to apply only to the front setback.
Okay, Commissioner Cisneros, did you have anything?
On the alternate design, it looks like there's actually about 10 feet from the building to the side property line. Is that correct? The thing in the laptop is actually flipped backwards, but I'm just trying, on the alternate design, the porch has been reduced and the house has been
correct.
Set back 10 feet on one side.
It has been. So when they adjusted that, they shifted the south, I believe, to the south property line.
Okay. All right. Do we have any more discussion or questions?
Yeah, I think the applicant said, they wanted to keep the porch, and the issue is not really the porch, it's just the overall resultant width of the entire structure. So if they want to make the house smaller and keep the porch, they should have no problem achieving there should be some way to get the proper scope and scale and massing with a porch. It's not so much the porch itself, is that correct?
It's right, it's the overall width, because the wraparound porch is such a large element of this, of the proposal, that it is causing, typically what we see is a width under 40 feet. And with this porch, either they can reduce the width of the actual, structure to get that, or proceed with the alternate, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So in the alternate design, the overall width of the house is 36 feet. And the lot is 60 feet or 50 feet?
It's 50 feet wide.
50 feet wide.
Correct.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I'll make one more comment because it came up before. When Ms. Tober spoke, someone pointed out that we didn't acknowledge that she's a former City of Houston employee, which I think it's not a problem, but I think people ought to know that it doesn't give her any special favor. She's just speaking as a citizen and all that. So I just wanted to make that public statement about that. And I'm glad more citizens in the Heights would come up and tell us how they feel about what's being done and how it influences them. And I'm glad she does come and speak and lets us know her views and everything else. And that's all.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other discussion or questions? Okay, Commissioner Mott?
I'd like some clarification that the proposed by the applicant is 36 and the recommended by staff is 32 feet. Is that correct? For the width?
The width?
You're recommending a reduction of the width to 32 feet?
The existing, the proposed structure, the preferred design by the applicant, the residence itself, the front wall has a width of 35 feet. The porch width is 43 feet, 8 inches. The alternate design for the residence, I believe, remains 35 feet, and the proposed porch is 32 feet.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cisneros, go ahead.
I would make a motion to accept staff recommendation with the alternates of the reduction of the width of the
Okay, so
of the building structure.
Okay, so Commissioner Cisneros has moved that we accept staff recommendation, grant a certificate of appropriateness with the following stated conditions inside of the application, correct? Okay, do we have a second on that motion? Okay, Commissioner Stava seconds that. All those in favor? Okay. All right, any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, Commissioner Cosgrove abstains, all the rest are in favor. So 1127 Arlington has been granted a certificate of appropriateness with its stated conditions inside of the application. All right, moving on to item 2Z, 1811 Harvard Street.
The applicant requests approval of a certificate to construct a 2-story, 2,064 square foot addition with an attached alley loading garage to an existing 1-story, 1,392 square foot residence. The proposed first floor of the addition will begin 26 feet back from the front facade on the north elevation, and 9 feet of the existing north wall will be demolished. And the addition will begin 30 feet back from the front facade on the south elevation, and 15 feet of the existing south wall will be demolished. On the first floor, the proposed addition will measure 36 feet wide, and the overall depth of the residence with the proposed addition will measure 95 feet deep. The proposed second story will begin 30 feet back from the front facade and measure 30 feet wide and 64 feet deep. The addition will have an eave height of 20 feet and an overall height of 30 feet to the top ridge. The addition will feature a hip roof, and the existing structure will feature 1/1 wood sash windows to match the existing, and the existing windows will be retained. The existing residence is clad with stucco, which will be retained and repaired where damaged or deteriorated. And the proposed addition will be clad with horizontal lap cementitious siding. The siding will begin 26 feet back from the front wall on the north side and 30 feet back on the south side. The existing pier and beam foundation is less than 8 inches off grade and will be raised. The addition will be built on a pier and beam foundation to match the existing, and the alley loading garage will be built on a slab foundation. Staff recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness.
Okay. We do have two members of the public signed up to speak on this item. Tara Starr, followed by Sam Giannakis. Okay. Ms. Starr, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Commission. Just one of the owners of the property, just wanted to introduce myself. I'm very excited to move into the Heights neighborhood and love historic preservation, so thank you.
Great, thank you for coming down. Do we have any questions for Ms. Starr? Okay, great. Sam Giannakis?
Only if you have a question.
Only if you have a question. Do we have any questions for Mr. Giannakis? Okay, doesn't look like it. Thank you. All right. Do we have any discussion or questions for staff?
I do. I mean, I see the addition is over 2,000 square feet on a 1,400 square foot home or something like that. It's just, I mean, this seems to me in the category of something where we do take into account kind of the overall massing on the site and that sort of thing. And I feel like to me, these are still problematic sorts of structures that do really impact the character of the neighborhood after a while. I mean, you get one or two, it's one thing. When they all begin to do this, the historic structure itself is being swallowed up by the addition. And to me, it doesn't really meet the common sense definition of what an addition is. It's basically the historic house is the addition to the new construction. And you know, we've often gotten recommendations against these, so I'm not sure why this one is different, or if I'm just, you know, not seeing this the same way, or something's changed. But this would be, to me, one I would typically deny. So it's very large, and when the addition is so much larger, it's a problem.
Okay, do we have any other discussion or questions for staff? Okay, Commissioner Mon?
This is, how many of these have we seen today already? It's just, this is the trend in the neighborhood, and it is of great concern to me, and I also understand that how we live today is not how we lived when this neighborhood was developed, so we do need to encourage additions, and I too have concern of these large two-story additions just really taking over the front of the house. I plan to do some driving in these neighborhoods to see what we have approved and what's out there and understand the issue better.
I think this is one of the points. What happens when we get often people that come in for applications, they said, well, you already approved one of these large additions. And we need to be extremely careful when we get these type of applications that come in, because if we go ahead and approve it, again, it gets used as a, well, you guys already approved it, and we are destroying the historical integrity of the district when we approve these type of applications that swallow the original home, that it makes it disappear. I have mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. It's all about, and to some extent, common sense. And if you really are interested in historical preservation, we need to take into account the home, the historical home first. I understand people want to have large families, they want to expand and whatnot. But when you're in a historical district, it is the concern to think about the historical home and the historical structure. And that's what I'll say about that.
There is an historic district with very large mid-century homes already, in case anybody wants to be in a historic district and have a big, called Glenbrook Valley, okay. All right, any other discussion or questions?
Not anything I haven't said in the past, in that we hear cries for consistency by those who are regular submitting projects to the commission. The approvals of projects of this type and this scope, magnitude, if you will, didn't just start in the last few months as we've seen an increase in them. It goes back to prior to the ordinance changing 3 years ago, when, as I said before, we used to commend applicants for doing these kind of projects rather than the alternative, which then was demolish the home. Being a builder and looking at 2D elevation drawings, and being a resident of Houston Heights and driving through there repeatedly and seeing dozens of these types of structures, that many of which you have to actually strain to see and notice them when you're driving down the street. It's my opinion or belief, I guess, that I want to show some consistency in what we've done in the past and continue going forward.
Okay, do we have any other discussion? Any questions for staff? Any motions?
I move that we accept staff's recommendation.
Okay, Commissioner Hellier has moved that we accept staff recommendation and grant a certificate of appropriateness for 1811 Harvard. Do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Homeyer seconds. All those in favor? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, any opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the motion fails. Any abstained? You're opposed? Okay, I'm sorry, 6 opposed. Okay, so the motion fails. Yeah, opposition, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. All right. So 1811 Harvard is not granted a certificate of appropriateness. All right, moving on to item 2AA, 2008 Lubbock Street.
The applicant requests approval of a certificate of appropriateness to replace existing wood 2/2 and 1/1 sash windows with new 2/2 and 1/1 vinyl windows. The residence features 19 2/2 and 2 1/1 wood sash windows. 14 of the existing 2/2 will be replaced with 2/2 vinyl double-hung windows. 5 of the 2/2 will be, and the 2 1/1 windows will be replaced with new 1/1 vinyl double-hung sash windows. The senior structural inspector has visited the site and found that the existing windows are damaged or deteriorate past the point of the repair. And staff is urging the applicant to seek out salvaged wood windows on the, staff recommends deferral of the certificate of appropriateness and is urging the applicant to seek salvaged wood windows of the appropriate type in lieu of new vinyl windows, which will now have the same appearance. The owner has not yet located sufficient number of salvaged windows, but has not exhausted all resources. And staff also encourages the owner to explore the possibility that some of the existing windows can be repaired.
Okay, we do have a speaker signed up for this item, Mr. Joe Moreno. Okay, Mr. Moreno, you can approach.
Good afternoon. I am the property owner, and as of early this week, we did locate windows for the house. The original application was submitted with vinyl because of the process here, and at the time, we had the inspector go out and look at the house, and they were pretty tore up. But we would like to go ahead and see if we can get the certificate because we have located the windows.
Oh, so you're stating that you're
I found the 2/2 windows.
that match the...
Yeah, that match the
Are they
house.
salvage windows or...
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are salvage windows.
Salvage windows that match the
There
style.
are a few windows that could possibly be repaired. The inspector is here. He has looked at them. I would say 90% of the windows are pretty bad. You can see from the pictures, they're pretty tore up. But I think that I can't find the rest of them.
Pete, would you like to speak on this item?
Good afternoon. My name is Pete Stockton. I'm familiar with this project. I've been following it for at least 5 years. I'm happy to see someone pick up where it was just sort of left. And most, if not all, of the original sashes are gone. The sticking is broken, rotten, missing altogether. And my can I stick my finger through it test on the sills and jambs, it fails the can I stick my finger through it test.
And they're done that.
Yeah. So I'm happy if anything can be salvaged from existing, but replacement windows with the same dimensions, 2/2, is great.
So it seems like the applicant's willing to work with us and has found some windows that match the style of the house, salvage windows. So do we have any other discussion, Commissioner Cosgrove?
Oh, I was going to make a motion that we accept, or we grant the certificate of appropriateness on the condition that he uses the salvage windows.
Okay, all right. Okay, Commissioner Archer seconds. All those in favor? Okay. All right, any opposed? Oh, sure, go ahead. Commissioner Stava would like to speak first. Go ahead.
Well, back up. I've heard the neighbor's position in the neighborhood. I don't know if they were supportive of this or not. Do you know anything about the neighborhood's position?
I know we had received some feedback from the neighborhood that they would like to have the proposal deferred in order to work with the applicant, either to find salvage windows or to see if any of the windows were repairable.
So it sounds like the neighborhood would be supportive of what the motion that Commissioner Cosgrove made. Is that okay with you, Commissioner Stava, or did you have any other discussion about that? Okay. All right, so I guess we proceed with the vote because it's been seconded. So all those in favor of granting certificate of appropriateness as proposed by Commissioner Cosgrove? Okay. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Abstain? All right. Commissioner Stava has abstained. All the rest have voted yes. So we've got a certificate of appropriateness with the conditions that they use salvage matching windows for 2008 Lubbock Street. All right, moving on to item 2CC 306 East 5th Street.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Matt Kriegel, and today I submit for your consideration Agenda Item CC, an application for a C of A at 306 East 5th Street, located in the Houston Heights Historic District South. The applicant proposes to demolish an existing non-contributing structure and construct a new 2-story residence with an attached alley-loading garage. The residence will be approximately 33 feet 6 inches in height and feature cementitious fiberboard siding and a hipped roof. The eave height will be approximately 23 feet 4 inches. The front of the house, it will be 39 feet wide, but the overall width of the house would be 44 feet 6 inches. The house would be 79 feet in length. There's a 20-foot wide by 8-foot deep front gabled porch centered on the facade. The proposed front-facing windows would be wood sash double-hung 2/2 windows, except for a set of 4 fixed light windows in the gable of the porch and then above the porch on the main facade. On the sides and rear will be a mixture of 1/1 sash windows, fixed windows, and glass block. The house will be set back for 10 feet from the front property line. And staff recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness with the following conditions: that the house be set back from the front property line 15 feet, which would be more typical with the neighborhood.
Okay. Do we have any questions for staff?
I just have a comment, and I brought this up a while back. And whenever we get applications like this, if we could have photos also of the adjacent structures to give us an idea of proportion and scale, would really help us kind of get an idea of what we're dealing with.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, we do have somebody signed up to speak on this, Mr. Bill Riley.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Riley. I'm the owner of the home, or the proposed home. We just got word that we needed to move the setback from 10 feet to 15 feet a couple of days ago, and we agreed to do that. Got an old school architect. He does everything by paper, so he wasn't able to respond. But we're going to do that, and everything will look pretty much the same as proposed. Just be compressed a little bit. The house, this is set on a side street. The houses that are directly across the alley, there's a row of 4 new construction, 2-story, they're big houses. Those are all set 10 foot off the street. So as far as massing on that side, it's, it'll fit in. And with the 15-foot setback, it'll be a lot more in line with what's across the street. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for the applicant at all? All right, is there any questions for staff? Okay.
Sorry, my question for staff is, again, on the width, the 39 feet is typical in this district for a house of this size?
Correct, under 40 feet.
Okay. All right, any discussion among the commissioners? Okay, do we hear any motions? everybody. All right, Commissioner Cisneros? Okay, Commissioner Cisneros has moved that we grant a certificate of appropriateness with the conditions as stated in the application. We have a second? Okay, Commissioner Mod seconds. All those in favor? Okay. All right. Okay, looks like, Commissioner Garcia-Herreros, were you in favor? Abstain. Okay, everybody else is voting yes. Commissioner Garcia-Herreros abstains. So we've granted a certificate of appropriateness for 306 East 5th Street with the conditions of the 15-foot setback as stated in the application. All right, moving on to item 2HH.
Agenda item HH, an application for a C of A at the landmark Tuttle House located at 2223 Inwood Drive. The applicant proposes to replace a single existing wood window on the landmark Tuttle House in order to improve natural lighting and cross ventilation of the kitchen. The applicant states that all the original windows in the house are wooden double hung with sash cords, and that over the years, most of the windows, including the candidate window for replacement, have been painted shut, both inside and out. Currently, the candidate window also has broken sash cords. In order to increase natural light and ventilation, the applicant proposes to replace the kitchen window on the west elevation with a new Pella Series 350 vinyl double-hung window. Our inspector, Pete Stockton, visited the site and noted that it appears that one of the sash cords have been cut and the sashes may be painted shut. Site photos indicate that the existing window is a wood 1/1 window. The proposed replacement window is a vinyl 4/1 window. Staff recommends denial of the certificate of appropriateness because there is no evidence that the existing window needs to be replaced and that the applicant could not be reached for discussion of the current proposal.
Okay. We have any questions for staff? Okay, Commissioner Mon?
It's a 1/1 with, 8-light screen?
Yes, a divided light. Yes, it's a divided screen.
I have a question. Are they planning on not having the screen or something? Is that, well, you, I guess, didn't get a chance to speak to the applicant, but.
I tried calling them on multiple occasions, and there was no response and no way to leave a voicemail. And I also emailed them, and I never received a response.
Now, my other question, and it gets back to my ongoing, never-ending issue with the landmarks versus the protected landmarks. So from what I understand, this is a landmark, not a protected landmark, correct?
Correct.
So if we deny a certificate of appropriateness for this window replacement, 90 days later, they get to do whatever they want anyway, right?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to state that again. Okay, Commissioner Mon?
Do U.S. staff have any way of knowing whether they are participating in the tax incentives?
I do not.
Okay.
That's a good question.
That might be a motivator for them to do the right thing?
Good point. Okay, do we have any other discussion or questions for staff? Okay, Commissioner Elliott?
Yes, I think just as, because it's not a historic district and they're going to avail themselves of a 90-day waiver, I think we just have to rely on the educational aspect of this, and even though they weren't responsive, if you all could maybe email them the information about the importance of historic windows, that's about the best we can do in this situation, I would think, but otherwise we'd vote to deny here.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion?
This is just a statement, comment rather. When the ordinance was being revised, discussed, there was a materials task force formed, of which I was a member, and the ordinance actually relaxed some of the requirements on replacement materials in that, whereas before if it was wood moldings, it's all that was supposed to go back in. Now PVC moldings, anything that looks like it did. The subject of vinyl and composite windows came up in those meetings, and was determined that they would be a satisfactory replacement for wood, so long as other things like light patterns and so forth were consistent, which is not the case in this application, but I just felt compelled to share that information with, which is not necessarily known to everyone, commission members or public.
I guess the new ordinance would really govern form versus material more. So if this window were a 1/1, it probably wouldn't have been a problem. Is that correct?
As far as we understand, based on the pictures that Pete took and the pictures the applicant submitted, there's no evidence that the existing window is even broken or damaged in any way other than being painted shut. Even by his own comments in the description of his project, he stated that the window was painted shut and that the cores were cut.
I wonder why they're replaced.
I think this conversation is also, it's been occurring at the commission level, and it comes down to the part of the commission, the part of the ordinance which maintains that we maintain historic fabric. And so with respect to windows, if they're in good condition, we try to maintain them. If they need to be replaced, then we allow vinyl or suitable other materials if they're similar, but may not necessarily be the same material. And that's sort of been a conversation that we've been having amongst ourselves.
Yeah, so I guess if we deny it, maybe they'll get educated really quickly or wait 90 days. We'll see. Okay, do we have any other discussion? Okay, any motions?
A motion that we follow staff's recommendations.
Okay, Commissioner Garcia-Herreros has moved that we accept staff recommendation and deny a certificate of appropriateness. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner, which Commissioner? Oh, Commissioner Maude. Okay, Commissioner Maude seconds. All those in favor of denying a certificate of appropriateness? Okay, all right. Any opposed? Abstain? Okay, Commissioner Hellier abstained. All the rest were in favor. All right, item has been denied a certificate of appropriateness. Now moving on to item 2KK, 1651 Columbia Street.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Lorelei Willett, and today I submit for your consideration Agenda Item KK, an application for a certificate of appropriateness at 1651 Columbia Street, located in the Houston Heights East Historic District. The applicant is seeking a retroactive C of A for work performed on the contributing residence. The applicant proposes to remove 6 damaged rounded porch columns approximately 4 inches in diameter, square balustrade, and rounded handrails on the east front elevation of the contributing residence and replace with 6 new 6-inch by 6-inch wood columns, new balustrade, and handrails of the same height as the existing, situated in the same location. Some of the existing porch columns are not original. Senior Building Inspector Pete Stockton viewed 2 of the removed columns and saw signs of damage, but did not see all of the removed columns or the balustrade. The original columns are slender, turned wood columns, which are typical of Queen Anne-style houses. The square porch supports proposed by the applicant are not compatible with the style of the house. The project proposed as is does not satisfy criteria 1, 4, and 5. Therefore, staff recommends approval of their certificate of appropriateness with the condition that the applicant restore original porch elements, columns, balustrade, and handrails that have been removed, and that components that are missing or damaged beyond repair are to be replaced with like elements. This condition will satisfy criteria 1, 4, and 5.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff on this item? Any discussion?
My only question is if the applicant agreeable to those conditions, or do you know?
I don't know, but the applicant is here.
Okay.
Oh, would the applicant like to approach?
My name's Rick Johnston. I'm the homeowner, and no, I'm not agreeable to it. I regret having made this change, not knowing the rules. I'm new to the Heights. I apologize. Doesn't mean I'm any less passionate about keeping my home original and keeping the area as you all are. The columns that were on it were rotted, mismatched. There were 3 different styles in the 6, and not knowing the rules at that time, and there's apologies for that. I went out and surveyed the neighborhood. There's literally dozens of homes, turn of the century, cottage-style homes with some Victorian elements with the square columns on them, and that's why I picked them. I I can change it back. I just think that, you know, I put a lot of effort into keeping all the home original cypress siding, tearing out floors and restoring the original hardwood floors. I just think the money would be better spent not doing this retroactive. It feels punitive to me, and I don't think it affects the period correctness of the home in any way, so I would ask you for approval.
I have a question. And what are your intentions for the design of the rest of the balustrade on there, on the house?
The original balustrade, the square 2x2 verticals, wood.
I have a question for staff. I mean, since they're mismatched, how do you know which ones were the original ones?
If you can go to, I think, yes, that picture. From my experience, the solid ones are more than likely original, while the hollow ones are more contemporary, I guess, just because they were, the solid ones were carved, not put on a spindle and then turned around and carved, if that makes sense.
Okay. Is that the bottom one? I can't tell which one's solid.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, the one on the right is the solid one.
Okay. On the right?
Or on the left, sorry.
The one in the lower picture.
Oh, lower picture. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or discussions for staff or the applicant? Okay, do we have any motions?
I move that we approve the certificate CFA for this particular house.
Okay, with or without conditions? Okay, Commissioner Archer has moved that we grant a certificate of... Oh, okay. Okay, so...
Whatever hasn't been done yet, that will be done.
Okay, so Commissioner Archer has moved that we grant a certificate of appropriateness with the condition that the balustrade is... and the part that isn't finished is repaired appropriately, I guess, or rebuilt appropriately, I guess. Okay, do we have a second on that motion? Okay, Commissioner Hellier seconds. All those in favor of that motion? Granting certificate of appropriateness with those conditions. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. Any opposed? Okay, 1, 2 opposed, and 3 opposed. Any abstain? Okay, 1. Okay, 1 abstain. So you're granted that certificate of appropriateness with those conditions as stated. Okay. Oh yeah, opposed? Please raise your hand. It's Commissioner Maude, Commissioner Garcia-Herreros, and Commissioner Stava. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 2LL, 3516 Garrett's.
Chairman Welch.
Oh, yes.
I have a possible conflict. I wanted to talk with the attorney if...
Oh, sure.
I might need to leave the room.
Go ahead. Yeah, you can just step out.
Anyway. Just leave anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if I do or not.
To be safe, it's always best to walk out, you know? We'll let you know when we're done. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, staff.
Agenda item LL. The applicant proposes to construct a new 12-foot wide, 31 feet deep, and 16-foot tall stucco porte-cochere on the south side, elevation of the existing residence, remove existing concrete side porch steps from the front porch and replace with wood balustrade to match existing, and to construct new wood steps and handrail at the rear porch. The structure, the porte-cochere, is set 3 inches from the south side wall and set back 10 inches from the east front wall of the main structure. After reviewing the 1924 through 1950 Sanborn maps of the district, staff found over a dozen examples of porte-cocheres in the district and viewed them as a typical feature for Westmoreland Historic District. Staff recommends approval of the certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, thank you.
I believe the applicant is here as well.
Oh, the applicant is here. Good. Would the applicant like to approach? Okay. Only if we have questions. Great. Okay. All right. Do we have any questions for staff for this item? Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any motions? Okay, Commissioner Stava? Okay, Commissioner Stava moves that we accept staff recommendation to grant a certificate of appropriateness for this item. Do we have a second? I'm sorry. Commissioner Cisneros seconds it. All those in favor? Okay. All right, Commissioner Cisneros, are you in favor? Okay, all right. All those in favor, everybody's in favor. Unanimous. 3516, Garrett has been granted a certificate of appropriateness. All right, moving on to, oh yeah, Commissioner Maude, you're cleared to come back in.
Are we doing the same property again? The next one, the same property?
Oh, I think that one was on,
Oh,
MM was on the consent agenda, it's already been granted a certificate of appropriateness. Should I bring up Q right now? Where am I? Okay, I'd like to go ahead. Item Q was on the consent, was one of the consent items that have already been granted a certificate of appropriateness, but a speaker signed up after the item was considered, and the commission can hear the speaker and then decide if you want to reconsider the item. I don't know if the applicant is still here, but we need a motion to reopen this item. It's item 2Q, 404 Sol Ross. And the speaker was Melissa Gilhart. Is Ms. Gilhart still here? Yes. Yes, okay.
Hello.
Oh, wait, we haven't reopened the item for consideration yet, so.
I'll move to reopen item Q.
Okay, Commissioner Cosgrove moves that we reopen item Q for consideration. Is there a second? Okay, Commissioner Garcia Herrero seconds. Okay, now we're back to considering item 2Q, 404 Sol Ross. All right, Ms. Gilhart, you can. Yeah, it has been.
Thank you so much. I was actually here at 1:45, and it took me literally 30 minutes to find the room, and when I came in, I gave her my speaker information and said I was okay, and I think you were reading the appropriateness at that time, so I'm sorry that I missed out, but I'm still here, so. My name is Melissa Gilhart, and I'm an active member of the First Montrose Commons Civic Association. I have lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. Lot 404 Sol Ross is a narrow 1920s era Butte addition which is vacant. Putting a 4,000 square foot, two-story house will totally fill the lot, leaving no green space. The 4,000 square foot structure also includes a two-car driveway and a garage, resulting in curb cut on the street in the historic Butte area. Now, a group of us is seeking time to work with the developer to purchase this lot and to convert it into a community space vegetable garden, like the one that was established in Audubon Place. As a resident of this neighborhood, I'm speaking for a lot of my neighbors in wanting to create this green space. I have been in contact with a developer who has an interest in possibly selling back the lot. And I have to tell you that I have the same square footage of lot size that I live on, and I can't imagine putting a 4,000 square foot home in that lot size. So I would appreciate any recommendations that you would offer us.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any questions from Ms. Gilhart?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Heather.
You state that you have support in the neighborhood. Do you have any documentation of that support or any communications with the builder to the effect that he's interested in?
Well, I've been the one who's been in contact with the builder. It was my landlord who sold the property to Lovett Development. And because this has come up very recently, I will tell you that the Civic Board of Directors at the FMC has taken the position, well, they don't have a position on it because the lot is vacant. So, but at this time, we have about 2/3 of an interest in buying the lot from 3 different people. Steve Longmire. I don't know if you all know him. He's a neighbor of mine. And so we've put in a whole page in our civic newsletter expressing the concern of this development, as well as wanting to establish the community garden.
Okay, but do you have any documentation of that?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay, do we have any more questions for Ms. Gilhart from the commission?
I do. I know this neighborhood has got quite a variety of styles and sizes. Some homes probably even larger than this one. Do you have any, I guess staff concluded that the proportions weren't really all that atypical or outside of what the norm was in the neighborhood. Do you have some reason to or any supporting evidence or something that shows us that this is actually much larger than any other house or something like that? Or
Well, I just bought the house at 406 Sol Ross, and I'm a new homeowner, so these questions are very foreign to me.
Okay.
However, I do know that the lot size is 50 feet wide and 125 feet long. And so the house proposed, from what I'm understanding, is 36 feet wide. Does that help answer your question?
maybe. And unfortunately, I mean, we kind of look at it as a district as a whole. The district
Right,
as a
I can
whole.
tell you that the lot size is the same as the lot size I have next door, and the house that I recently bought there, I've lived in it for 15 years and bought it, is 2,400 square feet, and the house that they are proposing is 3,950 square feet, and I just can't imagine
Right.
that structure being there. It's very large in a very small space. It just seems unimaginable to me.
Okay. All right, do we have any more questions? Okay, I have a question for Omar. Now that we made a motion to reconsider this item, how does that, I haven't, it's to reopen, so how does that affect the already granted certificate of appropriateness?
There should be another motion, either to grant or deny a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
I have concern about doing that with the owner not present,
Yeah.
the owner of the property, and the proposed, it meets the requirements the staff recommended.
Mhm.
It was in the consent agenda. I have concern about reversing that.
I would like to ask staff if the owner is aware that you had recommended approval of this project.
Yes, I believe. I had spoken with Ms. Golazzi, and
Which I think even highlights her concerns all the more. Approving this certificate of appropriateness does not prevent the owner from selling that property if indeed they were so inclined to do so.
Absolutely.
And if this has been something that's publicized in the newsletter, I might have expected to see a little more opposition here if indeed that's the case. So.
I think that's a good point. Okay, Commissioner Cosgrove?
The same builder is also developing 3903 Butte, which was also approved on the consent agenda, which is adjacent to this property. And is there no opposition from the neighborhood to that?
not that
Okay.
I was aware of. We didn't receive
So
anything.
just this particular one on Sol Ross, even though it's virtually the same as the one catty corner to it?
And they did come in well in advance of the application deadline to work with staff to come up with these designs.
Okay, all right. Well, do we have any other discussion? Do I hear any?
I'm sorry, just
Okay.
briefly, just to make sure we're not having some gross error here, you all did look at kind of the typical sizes of other houses in First Montrose, and this was within the envelope of the thing. Okay, that's it, fine. And I move we approve the certificate of appropriateness for this project as we did previously.
Okay, Commissioner Elliott's moved that we grant a certificate. Okay, Commissioner Cosgrove seconds. All those in favor of granting a certificate of appropriateness? Okay, Commissioner Cisneros, are you
Yes.
opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The certificate of appropriateness has been granted.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now moving on to item 3. Actually, I did want to recognize that we had a few other speakers signed up in favor of consent agenda items. Jean Creeley and Dan Barnum. Are those speakers still here?
No, they left.
They've left, okay. Well, their items were approved and they were supportive, so I'm sure they left happy. All right. Moving on to item 3, public hearing and consideration of a protected landmark designation application for existing City of Houston landmark for Jefferson Davis Hospital at 1101 Elder Street.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Matt Kriegel. Staff submits for your consideration agenda item 3A, an application for the protected landmark designation of the Jefferson Davis Hospital and Power Plant Building. The Jefferson Davis Hospital was the first city-owned permanent hospital facility that accepted the less wealthy and disadvantaged patients. The hospital was welcomed by Houstonians as a medical establishment that could exclusively attend to those who could not afford the luxury of a private hospital. People consider the 150-bed hospital an honor to the city and a godsend to the afflicted. The building was constructed on one of the oldest sites in Houston, which served as the only cemetery in Houston from 1840 to 1847. The cemetery included burials of the earliest and most prominent and heroic citizens, as well as hundreds of yellow fever and cholera victims, some of which were buried in mass graves. The cemetery was closed in 1879. And since there was no widespread removal of graves from the site of the proposed hospital, it was agreed that the hospital would be built with its basement above ground. After the hospital was built in 1924, it was named in honor of Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederacy. Jefferson Davis Hospital, opened in 1925, replaced existing scattered hospital facilities, and one of those was the old Camp Logan Hospital. It was the Camp Logan staff doctors and the Harris County Medical Association that generated enough public sentiment to endorse a $500,000 bond for building the new permanent structure. The site chosen was at Elder and Girard Streets, and the building was dedicated on December 2nd, 1924. The architect for the building was city architect W.W. Dowdy, and construction costs were $400,000. The contractor was Russell Brown Company of Houston, and the hospital had a capacity of 240 beds and was almost completely fireproof. The hospital is a good example of early 20th century hospital design that took into account the changing public perception about the treatment of disease. Around this time, public perception of hospitals shifted from a place to go to die to a place to recover and leave alive. Within 5 years, however, the rapid growth and population of Houston made the hospital obsolete, and a new hospital building was completed in 1937 on the Allen Parkway and was also named Jefferson Davis Hospital. That was demolished in 1999. The old hospital site at Elder and Girard Streets continued to be used for related medical purposes, including a psychiatric hospital, juvenile detention wards, food stamp distribution center, and even served as a record storage facility for the Harris County Hospital District. Stylistically, the hospital is similar to hospitals in New England and draws from European sources for its floor plan style and ward placement. The hospital is similar in appearance to Bulfinch's 1821 Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, and was designed and constructed in a neoclassical style, and today remains the only building of its prominence and stature in the First Ward neighborhood. The building consists of a high raised basement and 3 stories. The building has 5 by 6 bays and has a 3 central bay section. The building has a 3-bay central section with wings. The center bay projects from the building plane and has a cast stone portico with monumental fluted columns with Ionic capitals. The building is structural concrete frame with clay tile backed up with red brick veneer. The cast stone detailing brick corner coins and the entry portico are all elements of the neoclassical style popular in the early 20th century. Other classical elements include the cast stone keystones over the basement windows and the pedimented entry doors, both on the main facade. The hospital power plant is similar stylistically to the hospital building. The power plant building is symmetrical with 2 large arch openings, presumably used for trucks or other vehicles. The buildings were in a state of disrepair and had been vacant for 20 years when the Avenue Community Development Corporation negotiated the acquisition of the property from Harris County in 2002. Avenue CDC, a local nonprofit organization that specializes in the relocation and rehabilitation of houses, partnered with Art Space Projects Incorporated of Minneapolis to rehabilitate the building as affordable artists live-work spaces. Jefferson Davis Hospital was designated as a City of Houston landmark in 2002. and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2005, and designated as a recorded Texas historic landmark in 2008. The hospital grounds were designated as a state archaeological landmark in 1995. In addition to being individually listed in the National Register of Historic Places and recognized by the state of Texas, the Jefferson Davis Hospital meets criteria 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 for protected landmark designation. Staff recommends the HAHC recommend to City Council protected landmark designation of the Jefferson Davis Hospital and power plant building at 1101 Elder Road. If it pleases the commission, you may open public hearing at the time.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing for consideration of protected landmark designation application for Jefferson Davis Hospital. Would any members of the public like to speak on this item? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Would any members of the commission like to speak? Go ahead.
I noticed at the top of the page, it says that Harris County is the owner, but I believe it's the Avenue CDC.
I was going to mention that.
That may need to be.
Is it Avenue CDC that's the applicant?
Because.
I'd have to double check. You're right, the Harris County, that was a mistake on my part.
Yeah, I would be so impressed if Harris County would apply.
I know. I was going to make some comments about that, so maybe we're just lucky that they negotiate to sell it to Avenue CDC, and then they're doing the right thing. So maybe Harris County can still be commended for not knocking it down.
Well, also Harris County still owns the nurses' building, which suffered a really brutal fire about a month and a half ago.
Correct.
The walls are still standing, so the property is currently for sale if anyone would like to buy it and renovate it.
And there is preservation, or people who want to preserve that building as well. So maybe one day.
Do we have any other comments or discussion from the commission? I had a brief little story about this building. I've watched this building for many years. I've taught history in the city for many years, and when I first started teaching history, it was at Jefferson Davis High School, which is very close by in the north side. And every October I tell all these crazy ghost stories to my students. And all of my students, right when I first got to Jefferson Davis High School, when I was telling my ghost stories, they proceeded to tell me all these ghost stories that they've experienced about this building. And I just wanted to point out, Houston, that we are about to protect probably one of the most haunted buildings in the city. So that's pretty cool. So who would like to make a motion on this item? Okay, Commissioner Cosgrove? Commissioner Cosgrove. Okay, it's recommended that we accept staff recommendation for a protected landmark designation. Commissioner Garcia Herrero seconds. All those in favor? All right. No opposed? We have approved.
Thank you.
A protected landmark. Love it. All right. Moving on to comments from the public and HHC. We do have another member of the public signed up to speak, Joy Tober. Just so happy that that building is protected.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to get some clarification on the side setback issue from the previous agenda item that was being discussed. The ordinance does not specify whether or not it's front, side, or rear setbacks, and I'm kind of confused on how you can look at a lot and the proportion of a building on a lot and its scale and its massing without looking at the side setbacks. So I was just kind of hoping to get some clarification on that.
I too like clarification.
Yeah, Commissioner.
We can ask staff, but I think that the way the ordinance was, when it was rewritten, looks at not the blackface, but the district itself. That makes an interesting conversation because you can have different things. I personally tend to look at the size of the lot and the size of the structure on that lot. And when we talk about how wide is a house, and even today we mentioned a house, referencing an historic house with wraparound porches, and I have to imagine that wraparound porch house that is nationally listed probably has a larger lot and has some space around it. So I think that it's probably, if we're going to be using examples from around the district, which is what we do, we should think about the size of the lot that those houses are on relative to their width, and that will be a way to mitigate this issue we won't have a finite number for setbacks, but we'll talk about sort of, if we have this weight class, we'll know the house, we have typical setbacks perhaps. And if we're in a lightweight class, maybe it's tight. I mean, I know that there are many small structures in the heights for one-story houses that are 3 feet off one property line and they have a driveway on the other side. And because the houses are small, that's not an issue, frankly. And so I think it's about proportion and scale. And I think, you know, the part of the ordinance that deals with the context, that not just the site, but the overall impact to the context is a place that we can look toward that. I really think that going, as staff has said, is looking for support, is to go into these neighborhoods, establish what are good examples that are historically contributing structures, to figure out what these, how high is a raised porch, a raised finished floor, what are the setbacks, what are these eave heights, and as we get better data and it can make that easily presentable to the public, I think it will help. Many of these conversations will stop happening because it'll be so easy, but we're still in a growing infancy period.
Yeah, because quite honestly, in my personal opinion, a lot of times what is being approved at the commission is extremely arresting in the neighborhood. I walk around my neighborhood every day. I take my daughter for a walk. I choose different streets and go different routes. And every day I am smacked in the face by this humongous house. So it's just, I hate to see it keep going and going and going, and all these poor little historic structures are just being dwarfed. They're disappearing slowly. So that's just my concern. Thank you for the clarification on that.
I wanted to say something if I could. I don't think it really bothers me too, because my neighborhood's going the same route. I'm not in a historic district where people want to live in the neighborhood and they come in and they're destroying exactly what they wanted. But I don't know what the answer is. It's Houston right now. We have small lots. People want big houses. And I don't know, maybe my colleagues could say differently. And I know we approved an awful lot of big houses today. I was very aware of that. I'm just not sure what the answer is, because it's citywide, historic district, non-historic district. People want to live in these beautiful areas, and they need a lot of space. They need a lot of space. So I'm always aware of it, and I hope we can figure out some way to kind of not take away the very beauty of these areas we're trying to protect. But it's a citywide phenomenon.
And I understand it. I mean, I only have one baby, but our house has become a very small storage unit all of a sudden. So, we've had the discussion at home. I live in a historic district, and we've had the discussion at home. Do we stay? Do we build? Do we leave? So I understand needing to expand, and I really think there can be a compromise between, what the neighborhood wants and, what new families coming in or developers want. I think there can be a compromise, and hopefully we can work it out along the way.
I would also state, as we stated last year, there have been many calls from the commission that we have a public meeting or a trip, a walking tour of the districts. And frankly, I think the Heights is where we see most of the pressure. There's some in the 6th Ward, but with the Design Control Committee in the 6th Ward, many things get worked out before they come to us. And I think there are certain things that we needed to do procedurally with this commission. We had these guidelines come up, but I think now that we have some time, we should, again, try to refocus our efforts to get back, to make that trip, to look at these things. That's why I personally try to push back the 2nd floor addition. And I think if you're going to make a really big 2-story addition to a lot, the further you can push it back, the better it's going to be. But I think walking from the right-of-way, which is how our ordinance is written, how we perceive it from the sidewalk, I think will do all of us good to calibrate, in fairness to all sides here.
I think that's a very good point.
And that's my gestation of opposition to some of these things is any comments I ever hear from anyone about what the commission has done is usually surprised that something so altering to the character has been approved, and so I'm just more cognizant that that's what happens. Just on specifically on the typical of side setbacks, is that then the deal that there just is no typical side setbacks, that's not used, or how did we read out side setbacks from that?
Well, just when looking at the criteria, that the first criteria for new construction, that it has to match the typical setbacks, that's just been understood by the planning department to mean the front setback of the property, and the verb there is match. So all the buildings should be built on the same setback. However, it's not that the sides of the building are irrelevant, it's just that they're not considered a setback from the sideline of the property. You still look at the width in the third criteria, which deals with the proportions of the structures, but you don't necessarily have to match in the sense that every building has to be built the exact same dimensions on the property and match the side setback, if there's a side setback. But that's not to say that the width shouldn't be compatible and the proportions of the structure shouldn't be compatible. It's just not a requirement that you line it up exactly the way a setback is.
Okay. And just to address Commissioner Archer's point, we had a little education session about what does it mean to respect the historic character of the property, and at that time we were informed that it was reasonable and appropriate, take into account kind of lot coverage, for lack of a better word. And so if we do really adopt the point of view that historic character is these smaller homes with larger yards, then we would be perfectly within our responsibilities here to deny things that alter that particular aspect of the character. That was my takeaway from that education session we had, I don't know, several years ago. That
we would need some pictures of,
well,
particularly huge ones, we need to know what's around it.
Right.
Correct. That's yeah, we need to see larger picture.
Character and compass, that sort of thing.
Well, I think we approved a 5,000.
Yeah, we are sort of going into deliberation now. Versus.
Well, I have one more
I'd like to
comment.
apologize, I wasn't here at the beginning, so I wasn't sure if this was discussed, but I think design guidelines for the neighborhood would be a huge help for both people on my side and developers and everybody. That way we kind of all know where we all stand, and
the city is absolutely moving forward with design guidelines for the new districts. There was a little bit of discussion about design guidelines for established districts as well, and where we go from there, but we did discuss that quite a bit in the meeting. And I think it's a very good development on the part of the city to produce these design guidelines, because I think it really helps. Having worked with a lot of people back when I lived in Nor Hill and having served on this commission, it's a daunting process to go through, but I think the city's working really hard to make it easier, clearer, more predictable, and I think that the guidelines will do that. So
great. Thank you very
I'm
much.
optimistic. Thank you. We have any other members of the public?
Yes, you do, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I didn't sign up to speak, but
could you state your name for the
Sure.
minutes?
My name's Kent Marsh. I wanted to inform you more than anything else in response to some of the questions that were even brought up today related to response from the neighborhoods. About 3 months ago, I became concerned. I've lived in the Houston Heights East Historic District for 37 years now, and I became concerned, as many of you are, about the amount of reduction of historic characters in our districts, and more importantly, the lack of communication between the homeowners in the district that are really concerned about this and the commission and the staff. About 3 months ago, I established an idea of basically having an ad hoc committee that is no demands on any parts related to who's responsible for what, but it forms a communication forum between the homeowners in the area and the commission and the staff. For the last 3 months, we have been working, a group of 6 of us plus more that are all homeowners in the Houston Heights East District, have been working with the staff to form a process that would allow an ad hoc committee from any of the districts to, number one, obtain the applications in a timely manner that are supplied each month, and number two, to provide some input back to staff and then to the HAHC through staff We didn't feel like it was appropriate for us to be talking to HAHC directly, but talking to staff instead. And I think we have pretty well ironed out most of the issues related to that process. So I'm here to tell you that there is a committee that's in the homeowners in the district, and hopefully we can expand that to the other districts in the future. The idea was to get a process in place, and right now I make an open records request every month for the applications. I come down here myself 3 days after the request, pay for the application copies, distribute those applications to the half a dozen or dozen so people that are interested at this point in time. And then from that point, we form a consensus opinion, give a report back to staff in an Excel format of what our interpretation is about what we feel like is comfortable and not comfortable with what these applications are being submitted. So I do want to let you know that there is help on the way from that perspective. And also, to the point of the getting out and looking at the districts, I'm also working on getting a walking tour set up for the 3 Heights districts. So be aware that sometime in the near future you're going to be asked about dates, so be prepared to follow up on that commitment. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I just also wanted to point out that you or any member of your committee are always more than welcome to come and address the HHC at any time. We love it when members of the public come to address the commission. Did Commissioner Garcia-Herreras, did you have something you'd like to say?
No, just I'm glad you came.
Yeah.
Really appreciate, the input.
Councilmember Lovell would like to speak?
Just briefly. I know it's funny. First, Madam, I want to say congratulations on your election as chair. The discussion that we had just a few minutes ago, I just kind of wanted to comment on. The people, and it seems the Heights, I mean, Montrose is, if, like Harry Potter, we're in our third skin. If it were a snake, but what's being built is what people want to buy. And in the Heights, it's not people building spec houses and people moving in saying this is all you have. It's really driven by the people that want to live in those neighborhoods and what they want for their families there. And they're driving this. And so there are customers, there are investors in the city. And it's good for us because I lived in the Heights in the 77 to 88 and nobody would even come visit me. They thought it was too dangerous. And it was young urban pioneers that moved in and they wanted a little bit, but the people moving in there now, what they're asking for and bringing here is what they want. And so I think we have to keep some of that in mind when we're talking about our customers and our investors and the people that want to move in these neighborhoods. And if they don't move in, these neighborhoods will just atrophy back to what they were before. And there can be a balance. So in keeping that nice little house with that big yard, boy, that sounds really good. And I used to watch Leave It to Beaver too, but that is not what people want in their homes now. Kids don't go play in the backyards, and it's not like that anymore, which is why in Montrose, a lot of families are moving in. It's just not. The swing set isn't there. They're busy taking their kids around to ballet and gymnastics and school activities, and what they want is more house and less yard. And so I think we have to really keep in mind the people that come here and ask you to allow them to invest in these neighborhoods and do it in a way that their families want to live there. I think some of that must be taken into context and I so respect your wanting to save and preserve. I wouldn't have worked so hard in that ordinance if I wasn't the same. And I drive around Montrose and we're losing duplexes. I just saw 4 today, and we're not a historic district where I am, and they're going down. But the thing is, there's new people that want to invest in the neighborhood, and the thing is, too, for the city, it's good because it's raising the property values. And at some point in time, we will be having these discussions because nobody's going to come pay $100 a square foot to live in the Heights. It's at about 60 or 65, 80 in the Montrose. We all know it's going to cap off, and we'll be having other discussions. So I'm just asking you that when people come up, they're really bringing you what their customers want and what they've sat down with. They're not coming to you as builders and saying this is what we want, it's what they want. And if we can kind of find that balance. And if you can do design guidelines, I have people lined up that will invest, that will help you do it and move it forward. And boy, if we could have that commitment, I'll help chair that committee. I think it'd be one of the best things ever.
Thank you.
And congratulations again.
Thank you. All right, do we have any other members of the public that'd like to come down? Okay, I don't think anybody else. Do I hear any motions to adjourn? Wait a minute. Oh.
I just wanted to point out that we had 39 items on the agenda today, 33 of which were approved at about 85, 87%, and there was one deferral. I think a lot of that gets lost in the
I think
in
that's
the debate.
I think that's a very good point.
We are very respectful of the people.
Yeah.
That come up here.
I think that's a very good point. We do really spend a lot on considering. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, there was a number of emails that went back and forth. I was a participant in that about, I know these meetings are long and challenging in terms of time, and everybody is to be respected for that great commitment. But it would be great to have some of the projects that are set by example, that are maybe approved by consent, brought forward, 2 or 3 of them, so that our listeners on TV or in the audience can learn by example of what great projects go through the consent process, or some sort of system that you could
I
go
think
through
that was
quickly.
a really good point brought up by Commissioner Cisneros, because I think it's kind of lost on the public how many great projects are presented to us. And when we go through the consent agenda process, obviously we're going on, over 3 hours for these meetings, sometimes 4. The purpose of the consent agenda is to try to move the meeting along when we have great projects that are easier to approve. I do wish there'd be a way we could share those with the public. Maybe at the end of the meeting that staff could present all of them. Or a couple of them. I know all of them would be quite a few, but.
Or even at the beginning.
Some way, so.
You could do it at the end, but there's not much of an audience left.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe. Yeah.
Staff wanted to kind of throw in our thoughts on that. We had watched the emails as well, and we do that, the 5-minute educational preservation minute on most of our meetings. We didn't today because we were doing Germantown, but perhaps in the upcoming months we could also put together a group of projects that were stellar or really great examples and present those on an ongoing basis.
I think that's a great idea. So why don't y'all think about it and think what we should do.
And please forward us any projects that you've been really excited in.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. Any commissioner should forward to staff any projects they think are really particularly good, because we see such good projects on the consent agenda, and we're,
Nobody else sees them.
Yeah, no one else sees them.
Yeah, they only see the bad ones.
Well, they'll eventually see them when they're built, but, it'd be nice to share them beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do we have any other discussion or anything else on the commission? Do I hear?
I just want to say, for the education sessions, last year we had them before the session, and sometimes they were very brief, they might be 15 minutes long, but our attention to focus on those is a lot easier before we've gone through this process, and it's, I've found that it's a lot harder to follow the presentation after we've been,
So maybe the presentation could include great projects that had been granted a certificate of appropriateness the previous month.
Exactly. Yes.
So do y'all think that might work? I think
that would be the best.
Yeah. So why don't we do this? If any staff, any commissioners think there's a particularly good project that was granted today, a certificate of appropriateness, why don't you email staff and the rest of the commission and say, hey, I'd like this one presented to the public at the next meeting, and then maybe that could be added on an agenda. That could be agenda item 1 or 2 before we get into the new certificates of appropriateness. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? Go ahead, Commissioner Mon.
I would even ask if you'd entertain from last month too. I think there was a couple last month. I don't want to go back.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily limit it. I'm just kind of thinking like moving forward. If we do that, but if there were projects in the past on past agendas that we approved, I mean, I think that's great. So I'm thinking the first meeting might go way long because there's so many great projects, but
we can keep a running list.
Yeah. How about no more than 5? I don't know, something like that. But just a thought, just so we can move the meeting. But I think it's a really good point to highlight some of these great projects. Okay. Any more discussion at all? All right. Do I hear any motions at all? Okay. Commissioner Cosgrove moves that we adjourn. Any seconds? Okay, Commissioner Homeyer seconds. All those in favor? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, Houston.